Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 15 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. The Patch Paradox. Come with us. Zero said as he stood in the ruins of the auditorium, alongside Optimus Prime, offering his hand to the recently liberated Suzaku. The Britannia you serve is nothing more than a delusion. A puppet empire on the strings of an even greater threat. Maybe that's true, Suzaku admitted before turning to the duo. But this nation, it can be changed for the better and from within. He then turned around to walk away. And any gains by contemptible means aren't worth anything. Wait, where are you going? Zero asked. My court-martial begins in an hour. Suzaku replied. Are you mad? Zero exclaimed in outrage. The only reason they're even giving you a trial is to find you guilty. The judge, prosecution, and defense. Rules are rules, Suzaku replied. And if I don't go, they'll start cracking down on 11s and honorary Britannians. But you'll die, Zero told him. I don't mind, Suzaku insisted. Don't be an idiot, Zero shouted. You can stop me though, can't you? Suzaku turned to face Optimus directly. One of you happens to be a giant sentient machine far stronger than myself. If you want, you could stop me from leaving right here and now. So, I guess the real question is, will you allow me to leave of my own accord? Or force me to stay against my will? Freedom is your right, Optimus replied. If this is indeed what you choose, we'll respect your decision. Thank you, Suzaku nodded. However Suzaku, I ask for one thing. Optimus continued. Now that we have made our appearance, the Decepticons will more than likely make an appearance as well. I implore you, do not trust them. There is one other thing. I want you to ask yourself a question. You say Britannia can change for the better, what if you go down this path, and you're wrong? Well, I'll just have to hope I'm not. Suzaku said. Even still, I thank you both, for saving me. Suzaku had walked out of the ruined building, but he didn't get too far as a familiar voice spoke out. Well, you were so quick to turn down an offer, without even providing a solid answer. Suzaku looked up in surprise to see none other than Megatron standing over him. Quite the contradictory, Suzaku Kururugi. The young honorary Britannian looked nothing short of stunned. What are you, how are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Megatron gave a knowing smile. Maybe I wasn't here in the past, and that's exactly what we are seeing right now, the past, your past. The exchange taking place between Megatron and Suzaku was witnessed by Shockwave, as well as the two mini-cons Frenzy and Rumble, on a monitor within the Nemesis laboratory. Megatron and Suzaku's bodies were both lying flat on medical tables, albeit one built for mini-cons. In the case of Suzaku is a cord connected to both of them from the back of their tables. This is gonna be juicy. Frenzy smirked as he, Rumble, and Shockwave paid close attention to what was about to play out before them. My past? Suzaku asked completely surprised. What? But how? The cortical psychic patch. Megatron explained as the background around them shifted from the previous memory to an empty void with a single light shining above them for illumination. An interrogation technique that allows us to extract information directly from our prisoners' minds. Suzaku looked even further shocked before he glared at Megatron. You would pull information from people's minds against their will. Only when all other options have been exhausted. Megatron replied. But I'm not the one on trial here. We are currently inside your mind, Suzaku Kururugi. You see there are no secrets here, only your memories. You cannot manipulate their content, or modify their outcome, what we see is how it happened. A series of memories began to emerge in the form of holographic screens around the pair as they each played out in a style similar to that of a movie. Is it bad to be weak? The memory of Suzaku's first meeting with Euphemia in Shinjuku played out. Back when I was 10, the world seemed like such a terrible place, a world without any hope at all. Disease, racism, living a never-ending cycle of hate. The cycle must be broken, somebody has to do it. Of course, it's doubtful that the one who does it will make all the bad things go away. No one should lose more of the people they love, at least a world without war. How would you do it? Euphemia's voice asked. I don't know how you would do it. Suzaku's voice replied. But if I keep trying, my father's death will have been for nothing. Next was the memory of Suzaku, Rai, and Lelouch in the student council room after the Black Knight's debut. Look, I'm not an idiot, I know the Empire is far from perfect right now. But they could invoke change from within the system. Suzaku's voice stated. A third memory appeared of Suzaku and Euphemia talking in the settlement. But Britannia also rebuilt Japan, Suzaku's voice spoke out. Not all of it, the memory of Euphemia replied. What about all the ghettos, or the fact that people have to earn their rights back? Rights that, honestly, should never have been taken away. Britannia isn't perfect, I can admit that. Suzaku's voice replied. But it can change for the better. It has the potential to do just that. I mean, you're a princess. The fact that you've just said how you don't approve of all this violence shows that Britannia isn't all bad. Britannia can change for the better, you say. Megatron asked Suzaku as the memories came to an end. And how exactly would you go about that? By making them trust me. Suzaku replied. Once I have their trust, I can invoke the change from within. And how can you earn their trust if you are unable to provide acceptable results? Megatron questioned as he pulled out more of Suzaku's memories of his many defeats, such as the Lancelot being blown away by Bulkhead in Greece over the Energon Harvester, Suzaku being trapped by Arachnid during their first confrontation in Shinjuku, the Lancelot breakdown, and Arachnid being defeated by the combined efforts of the Gurren, Gekka pre-production, Bulkhead, and RC. How can a soldier whose only known failure possibly make change in a system that is designed specifically to oppress people of your very stature? Megatron questioned. But, none of that, Suzaku tried to come up with a response. The Autobots and the Black Knights. So, you choose not to accept responsibility for your own failures. Megatron questioned even more irritably. This inadvertently caused a memory of Suzaku's to display itself, the memory of him, Dreadwing, and the captive Colin on Kaname Island. Ironhide was right about you. Colin's voice stated. You cannot take responsibility for all the crap that you do in your life. Megatron looked in a mixture of annoyance and amusement. Even your enemies see this flaw in you. How sad. Suzaku was unable to come up with a proper argument, prompting Megatron to continue. When I first saw your prowess in the Lancelot, I had believed you would be able to serve me well. However, even my patience has its limits, and you are reaching that as you have not yet scored a single victory against our enemies. And it's not just in the heat of battle either, it's your hesitance. The memory of Suzaku's and Breakdown's battle against Arachnid popped up as the Lancelot had Arachnid pinned down. Surrender now. I am placing you under arrest. Under arrest, am I? The memory of Arachnid asked as she held up her hands with a smirk. You still think you're the good guy? She blasted her palm lasers to blast the Varus out of the Lancelot's hands before using her spider legs to destroy it. Next was the memory in Greece again as the Lancelot stood over the fallen Barai with Starscream, Breakdown, and Knockout. This is the moment where you prove your worth, Kururugi. The memory of Starscream stated. This is a Black Knight, an enemy to not only your Empire of Britannia, but to the Decepticons as well. He is the reason this mission is a failure, and as your commanding officer I am ordering you to execute this Black Knight now. The memory showed Suzaku's hesitant face. But I. Do you plan on joining their ranks anytime soon? No. Then be done with it already. The memory of Starscream exclaimed. Hesitance may be one thing, but insubordination is something else entirely. Megatron stated as a more recent memory came to light, this one being of Suzaku attempting to stop Zero and the Autobots from escaping the Avalon's bombardment. The memory showed a slit in Zero's mask opening to reveal his left eye as a certain red emblem shined. Live. However, the memory went to static before it shifted to Suzaku waking up on the shores of Kaname Island. Most peculiar. Shockwave observed the blackout in between the two memories. It would seem that the memories of those under this specific Geass are invisible to the mind. So, he doesn't have any memories of it? Rumble asked. Illogical. Shockwave replied. Memories, be they from a Cybertronian or organic specimen, do not simply vanish but are often repressed. And it would seem that the effects of Lelouch's Geass has repressed this particular memory. Maybe if we drill even deeper, we might be able to find it. Frenzy suggested somewhat sadistically. Perhaps. Shockwave responded. But at the moment, Lord Megatron is in full control. And we cannot probe deeper without risking harm to the specimen. Lord Megatron has not ordered us to harm Kururugi during the process. Frenzy looked rather disappointed. Killjoy. We still get to watch Suzaku squirm, which makes me happy. Rumble smirked as they continued to watch. I don't remember that, Suzaku stuttered as Megatron loomed over him. I can tolerate many things, my boy. The leader of the Decepticons said. But among the few things I will not stand for, is an excuse. You can either deliver results, or you cannot. What is it you want from me? Suzaku asked. Do you want me to fight harder? Stronger? No, Suzaku. Megatron replied. This is to determine whether or not you can truly contribute in this conflict. And if I deem that I have made a mistake in recruiting you, that you cannot make a contribution to our cause, not only will I remove you from the Decepticon ranks, but I will see to it that you are removed from the Britannian military as well. Permanently. Ashford Clubhouse, Lelouch's room. The former prince sat on his bed as Cece placed her hand on his forehead. After returning from Kaname Island, Optimus had insisted Lelouch visit Cece to see if any changes had been made to his Geass, and after seeing how that mysterious object known as the Thought Elevator had a glowing Geass emblem on it, Lelouch agreed with Optimus as Cece was able to use her powers to detect any abnormalities with his own Geass power. Cece removed her hand once she finished as Lelouch looked toward her. Well, your Geass has grown significantly. Cece answered. And it's not by natural means. If I had to take a guess, I would say VV was likely the culprit. That got Lelouch's attention as she continued. He must have rigged a trap with the Thought Elevator that would force your Geass to grow to the point where you can no longer control it. Like Mao? Lelouch asked, to which Cece nodded. And I'm guessing you can't remove my Geass entirely, can you? If I could do that, I would have done it with Mao before I left him. Cece replied. Once a Geass has been given, it becomes a permanent part of you. The only way for the power to be removed is if it's replaced by a code, which is the power I wield. You would gain immortality as well as the ability to grant Geass to others. Thanks, but I'll pass. Lelouch said immediately. I don't want to outlive my friends and family. Cece gave a half smile, relieved Lelouch wouldn't want that cursed power. I did however manage to suppress your Geass power. It's not exactly a permanent solution, but it should keep the power contained. However, if you use that power again, even 2 or 3 more times, there is a possibility you might lose control and it could become permanently active. Lelouch grimaced at that particular thought. Do the same limits apply? Yes. Cece answered. You'd still have to make direct eye contact. So even if it does become permanent, something like your mask, or even something simple like sunglasses or special contacts can block it. Alright. Lelouch nodded. I'll talk with the Ratchet and fix it about making special contacts just in case. I like my mask, but I don't want to wear it 24/7. He attempted a joke, which caused Cece to smile slightly as she shook her head. So that Thought Elevator, do you know what it was? Cece looked seriously. I'm not 100% sure of its origin, but I do know that your father and uncle have taken an interest in them. That got Lelouch's attention. Them? You mean there's more? Yes, a total of 7, excluding the one Optimus recently destroyed. Cece began to explain. They're all over the world. I don't know their exact locations, but I do believe they may be connected to the origin of Geass, but I can't say for certain. I see, so not even you know where all this came from. Lelouch observed. I wasn't always immortal. Cece continued. I was once a normal person, till I was granted my own Geass and a different code bearer passed their ability onto me, and that was several centuries ago. I've honestly lost count. Lelouch looked in sympathy. He could only wonder what that was like. To live constantly while watching everything and everyone else around you change, grow old and die, unable to form bonds with others. I'm sorry. Cece sighed before she got back on point. Your father and VV are somewhat obsessed with the Thought Elevators. I'm afraid I don't know a whole lot about their purpose since I left them a long time ago, but it seems they've gained a better understanding since then. Are these other Thought Elevators going to be a problem? Lelouch asked. Not at the moment. Cece replied. If they do become a problem, you and Optimus will be the first to know. Thank you. Lelouch turned around and was about to leave before Cece stood up. Speaking of knowing Lelouch, when do you plan to tell Nunnally? That caused Lelouch to stop in his tracks. If I'm being honest, I'd say now is the time to tell her. Her life is not currently in danger and she is here right now. If there was ever a good time to tell her, it would be now. I know, Lelouch admitted, still keeping his back turned. It's just. You're not sure how she'll react. CC asked. I know I said I'd tell her but how? Lelouch began, letting his nervous feelings be known. I'm leading a rebellion against the empire we both called our home, while also being caught in the middle of an alien war. How the hell do you even say that to a girl like her? CC looked with understanding before she put a hand on his shoulder, prompting him to look at her. Lelouch, you know your sister better than anyone else, and I've been around her long enough to know she might be one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. I'd even go so far as to say her compassion is only rivaled by Optimus Prime himself. I'm sure once you explain everything, and how you're fighting for what's right, she'll understand. She loves you deeply, and I don't think there's anything in the world that'll make her change her mind. Lelouch looked to CC in surprise. He remembered how he first met her when she was a cold cynic. Now here she was, offering him genuine support as a friend. This was enough for him to smile as he knew he could trust the immortal completely. Thank you, Sarah. She smiled, letting his use of her real name slide just this once. I could though use your help in explaining all of it to her. Lelouch said, especially when it comes to my Geass. Of course. CC nodded as they left the room. It wasn't long before they walked into the dining room where Nunnally and Sayoko were folding origami. Nunnally. Lelouch got their attention. Hello Lelouch. Nunnally smiled as she turned her head in the direction of her brother's voice. I have something to tell you, Nunnally. Lelouch said as he sat across from her. What is it? Nunnally asked. Sayoko, would you give us a minute? CC asked the maid, but Lelouch quickly raised his hand. Actually, I want to talk to you too, Sayoko. Lelouch said, surprising CC as well as the maid in question as Lelouch looked toward her specifically. You've always taken such good care of us, even when knowing who we are. The least I can do is tell you this as well, as thanks for everything you've done. Sayoko had an understanding look on her face as she sat down, right as Lelouch reached out and gently grabbed his younger sister's hand. Nunnally looked a bit confused as she could sense some emotional turmoil in her brother. Lelouch, is something wrong? He gave a sigh before he spoke. Nunnally, there's no easy way to say this. So, I'll just come right out with it. Lelouch hesitated for a moment before his face became serious and he spoke to his sister with two simple words. I'm Zero. The entire room fell deathly silent as CC found herself looking from the siblings to Sayoko, who simply had wide eyes and a mouth over her hand at this revelation. Lelouch honestly felt more uncomfortable than he ever been in his life. He just revealed his secret identity to his sister, but she didn't respond at first. He didn't know how she would respond, and just waiting for a response was almost agonizing. Finally, after what seemed almost like an eternity, when it was really just a few seconds, he heard a faint sob. Lelouch looked with surprise and sympathy as he saw tears flowing down the closed eyes of his younger sister. I didn't want to believe. Nobody had expected Nunnally to say that. CC was honestly shocked by this, but none were more surprised than Lelouch himself. You knew. When you rescued Suzaku, Nunnally sniffled. Once I heard your voice, my heart told me that it was you. But, I didn't want to believe it. Tears were already flowing down her face. Lelouch, have you really been fighting Britannia all this time? Putting your own life in danger? Though young revolutionary was certainly surprised that Nunnally had known the whole time, he inwardly winced as the last thing he wanted was to make his sister worry like this. Despite this however, Lelouch knew he had to tell her the whole truth now. I'm sorry Nunnally. Lelouch began. But, I couldn't stand by and do nothing anymore. For so long, I've tried to ignore the suffering that went on around us, I've tried to block it out, thinking there was nothing I can do. But, I can't do that anymore. I can't just sit and watch as monsters rip this world apart and ruin so many lives. I'm sorry I took so long to tell you, I've wanted to, but things just kept getting in the way. I'm quite sure. Sayoko spoke up. It must not have been easy, given you're not only facing Britannia, but even the likes of the Decepticons. That took Lelouch, CC, and even Nunnally by surprise. I've suspected you were Zero for quite some time, Lelouch, and it's partly the reason why I've been with the Black Knights as well. If they weren't surprised, the three of them certainly were now. Sayoko. Nunnally stuttered. You're in the Black Knights. Lelouch almost shouted. How come I never knew? For one, there are so many recruits I don't think even you can keep track of them all. Sayoko replied, even CC silently admitted that was true. And I haven't been in for very long, Diethard Reed only recently recruited me as a spy. Of course. Lelouch silently cursed. Damn fanatic, he's useful, but he's also a real pain. Sayoko. Nunnally wasn't sure what to make of that either. Forgive me for not telling you sooner, Lady Nunnally. Sayoko bowed humbly. I joined because I felt if something were to happen, and if I was right about your brother being Zero, we could move you safely and out of harm. Lelouch understood then why she joined the Black Knights and was inwardly glad he could have someone else that he trusted with him. Thank you, Sayoko. CC then spoke up. Nunnally, I understand that all of this is incredibly shocking for you. But you have to listen to what your brother has to say, it's not just about fighting Britannia. She's right. Lelouch continued as he still held Nunnally's hand. Do you remember that night when I rescued Suzaku? I wasn't alone then. Those Autobots I've heard about? Nunnally asked. Yes. Lelouch confirmed. There's more to them than meets the eye, and you should know the whole backstory. From then, Lelouch and CC had told both Nunnally and Sayoko everything. They told her about the incident in Shinjuku, how Lelouch met CC as well as the Autobots, and even about his Geass ability, with CC revealing her own immortality. Lelouch also explained everything he learned from Optimus about Cybertron, his history with Megatron, and the war against the Decepticons, and even about Cybertron's destruction, and the possibility of the Decepticons being the true masterminds behind Britannia. They also told her about some of the Autobots individually. Including the reveal that Lelouch's car is the Autobot Scout Bumblebee, something Sayoko already figured out on her own. And even about their leader Optimus Prime. There was also the reveal of the individual named VV who was Lelouch and Nunnally's paternal uncle, and that Colin, Rai, and Shirley were also members of the Black Knights. He even told her about his encounter with Cornelia and his more recent one with Euphemia on Kaname Island. But what was most difficult, was Suzaku's involvement of the Decepticons, but Lelouch had told her that, and even the truth of Suzaku's father's death. It took quite some time, but Lelouch had told Nunnally everything. Now he, Sayoko, and CC just looked toward Nunnally who had listened to every word but had yet to offer a response. Nunnally, are you still with us? Lelouch asked somewhat nervously. Yes, Nunnally replied. It's a lot to take in. I know, and I'm sorry for that. The eldest of the V Britannian siblings said understandingly. It's all so sad. Nunnally said. First, your friends lose their whole world. And now Suzaku, I had no idea, his own father and, he's with this, Megatron. I'm afraid so. Lelouch said gravely. Isn't there anything you can do to help him? Nunnally asked, sounding almost desperate. If Suzaku knows you're Zero. It's not that simple, Nunnally. Lelouch told her. I want to help him more than anything, but it's not just getting him away from the Decepticons. Listen, one of the issues is Suzaku has proven that he's unable to accept his own mistakes and won't take responsibility for them. He's always blaming others for what goes wrong, while also ignoring all the atrocities committed by both Britannia and the Decepticons. If we are able to help Suzaku, he has to admit he made the wrong choice and take responsibility. If he can't do that, then, I don't know if we can help him. Well, maybe I can help him. Nunnally offered in a pleading tone of voice. He's my friend too. I'm sure maybe both of us together can convince him. I'm hoping that's the case. Lelouch replied. But Nunnally, we also have to be careful as to not put ourselves in danger against the likes of the Decepticons. Trust me, as horrible as our father is, Megatron is even worse. I still want to try. Nunnally said. I still want. And we will. Lelouch assured her. But we also have to be prepared if it doesn't work. He noticed the conflicted and torn look on her face. Nunnally, I am so sorry I never told any of you this sooner, maybe I should have. But, you have to believe me, I'm not alone in this. I've got so many people that I can trust who are helping me, both in the Black Knights and the Autobots, and we all want the same thing, to make the world a gentler place. Isn't that what you want? Nunnally grimaced slightly. Lelouch, what I said to you, how I wished the world were a gentler place, I really did mean that, I do want the world to be a gentler place. But, really, what I want more than anything, is just to stay by your side. That took Lelouch by surprise as she held his hand even tighter. I can't imagine the world without you, Lelouch. Even if the world becomes a better place, I don't want to live in it if you're not there. I know I'm being selfish, but I don't care. I just want you to be by my side. That's all I need to be happy. Tears were already flowing down the disabled girl's eyes as Lelouch himself looked quite a bit emotional. Sayoko had placed a comforting hand on Nunnally's shoulder while CC just looked in sympathies. Nunnally, I'm not going anywhere. Lelouch told her. I promise, I'm not going to die or leave, I've got many friends to help me every step of the way. It's okay to be selfish, you're only human. Nunnally, I make this promise to you right now from the bottom of my heart. I will never leave you, and I will make this world a place where everyone can be happy. We will make this world a better place, both myself and Optimus. Nunnally, despite having tears in her eyes, smiled at Lelouch. You really look up to him, don't you? He's like a father to me. Lelouch confessed honestly with a smile. And I'm hoping he can be that for you as well. Does that mean I'm going to meet him? Nunnally asked. Soon, Lelouch assured. Nunnally, listen to me. We might not be able to stay at Ashford much longer. Millie and her grandfather have done so much for us, but the Black Knights and the Autobots are on pretty rough territory right now against Britannia and the Decepticons. If things escalate, or worse, they find out who we are, they might just level the entire school. That caused Nunnally to gasp in shock. Which is why we should leave soon so they don't have a reason to target it. Tell you what, you know the school festival that's coming up soon. We'll leave right after that. That gives us plenty of time to get everything situated. Will that be alright with you, Sayoko? He asked the maid specifically. Yes, I believe I can manage that. Sayoko assured. After that, Nunnally, we'll take you to the Ark. Lelouch told his sister. Not only will you be safe there, you'll meet plenty of good people and bots. And given how advanced Cybertronian technology is, we might even find a way to restore your sight and legs. Nunnally slowly reached out and caressed her brother's cheek as she smiled. Lelouch, I told you before that I trust you. And that hasn't changed in the slightest. Even if you're Zero, I still believe in you. If you believe the Autobots and Black Knights are good people, then I know I can trust them too. You really trust me that much? Lelouch asked, feeling more than a little emotional. I've never stopped trusting you. Nunnally assured. You'll always be my big brother, Lelouch. And I love you with all my heart. Lelouch couldn't contain his tears of joy as he wrapped his arms around Nunnally, who responded with the same gesture. I love you too, Nunnally. Both Sayoko and CC smiled as the former was already shedding a small tear of joy, and even the later looked like she would do the same, but she ultimately didn't, despite being happy for them. However, she knew they had another issue to address. Lelouch, as touching as all this is, you should really see Optimus and the others about your Geass before it becomes a problem. CC advised. Yeah, I know. Lelouch reluctantly ended his embrace with his sister. Sorry Nunnally, but I have to go. It's all right, I understand. Nunnally nodded. Lelouch then looked towards Sayoko. Can I trust you to help CC watch over Nunnally till we're ready to move? Of course, you can, my lord. The ninja maid nodded. Lelouch, you and your sister are both very dear to me, and I swear that I will never leave your side or hers. Thank you. Lelouch smiled gratefully. Hey Nunnally, I might have to leave, but maybe I can introduce you to another close friend of mine while I'm gone. Lelouch, CC, and Sayoko had arrived along with Nunnally in a large storage area where a certain blue nightmare was being stored. It was the third generation, Ganymede, once owned and piloted by Lelouch and Nunnally's late mother. Though seeing it again made Lelouch's heart wince slightly, it was the only safe place for Nunnally to safely converse with his Autobot companion. It's all right, you can come out. Lelouch spoke to a shadowed area as a certain yellow car slowly drove out before it transformed to reveal itself to be Bumblebee. Though Sayoko had seen them on television, she was more than a little amazed at seeing an Autobot in person before. Though Nunnally couldn't see him, she could almost feel his presence, and she could already tell it was a gentle one, which was enough for her to smile. "So, you finally told her." Bumblebee addressed Lelouch. "Better late than never." Lelouch smiled before turning to his sister. "Nunnally, meet Bumblebee." Nunnally giggled. "Bumblebee. That's a cute name," she said before addressing the Autobot scout. "It's a pleasure to meet you." "Nice to meet you too." Bumblebee spoke in bleeps, which only caused Nunnally to look in confusion. "I'm sorry, what?" He said. "It's nice to meet you too." CC translated. "Oh right, forgot." Lelouch took out his own earpiece and placed it in his sister's own ear. "Sorry about that, his voice box was damaged in battle. This should help you to understand him better. Can you understand me now?" Bumblebee asked in bleeps as the earpiece helped to translate it for Nunnally, causing her to smile. "Yes, I can understand you. Lelouch has told me a lot about you, Bumblebee. Hopefully the good stuff." Bumblebee joked, causing Nunnally to giggle as even Sayoko and CC smiled. "I have to go. Take care of her for me, alright B?" Lelouch asked his partner and friend. "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to her," Bumblebee assured. Lelouch nodded as he took out his cell phone and called the Ark. "Fix it, I need a ground bridge." Less than a second later, a small ground bridge portal opened up in front of him, allowing him to step inside as he let Bumblebee finally get acquainted with his younger sister. Meanwhile, several Decepticon miners worked to drill their way through the landscape of Kaname Island, using both large and small excavation tools. One would think they were looking for Energon, but that was not the case. Leading this excavation were the pair of Soundwave and Arachnid. "They're close," Arachnid said to Soundwave as she could sense it. "I can feel them." "Soundwave, sir, we believe we located something," one Viacon reported, prompting both Soundwave and Arachnid to transform into their respective vehicle modes and fly toward the location of the soldier that called to them. They flew towards the center of the island where they spotted a group of Viacons gathering around a large hole that led deep underground. Both transformed back into their robot forms and landed. "This may be the point of entry," the Viacon who called them reported. It does seem like this was dug out recently." Arachnid noted the structure of the hole as Soundwave did a quick scan, and soon detected multiple Cybertronian signals inside. "Looks like we found what we were looking for." Arachnid smirked. "We will assemble an escort group immediately," a different Viacon stated. "That won't be necessary. Come along Soundwave." Arachnid leapt into the hole, with Soundwave leaping down after her. It was a rather deep drop, almost 400 feet, prompting Arachnid to extend her spider legs and cling to the wall of the hole to halt her fall before she leapt to the ground. Soundwave had done something similar by extending his tentacles to grab onto both walls of the hole before retracting them and letting him drop to the bottom with no issue. The pair walked onto a sight that made even Arachnid look in surprise. So, it would seem Kickback and his team were only scouts. What laid before them appeared to be an entire Insecticon hive. Pods of all shapes and sizes were lined on the floor, walls, and even ceiling. There appeared to be a number of at least 100 pods in total. Once the two made their way closer, a few of the pods began to open as series of different types of Insecticons crawled from the walls or dropped from the ceiling to address the pair. Two were among the larger variety that Optimus, Bumblebee, and Dreadwing had faced on this island. Two more Insecticons appeared to be the Swarmer breed, while there was even one Bruiser. There were even a trio of Spitters that hovered in the air. The Insecticons growled at the intruders. "Oh, there is no need to be so hostile," Arachnid said in a casual tone, while also communicating on a certain frequency that allowed her to establish proper communication with them. "After all, we are somewhat related." With those words, the Insecticons present all bowed before the pair of Decepticons. To Arachnid specifically, something Soundwave noticed. "Now then, who here is in charge?" Arachnid asked. In response, another Insecticon appeared. He looked almost identical to the largest bipedal ones, the only difference is that his body was covered in white claw streaks. Whether they were paint or actual scars was up for debate. "I lead this hive. I am Hardshell." "Hardshell," Arachnid noted. "You look different from how I last saw you. Before, you relied on weaponry and tactics as opposed to brute force. What's with the new look?" "After experiencing defeat at the hands of the Autobot named Grimlock, I realized that tactics and weaponry alone can only get you so far. Hardshell answered. True power is strength, true power is ruthlessness, terror absolute. And so, I've adopted a form that would best suit raw strength, so the next time I see that accursed Autobot, I shall terminate him with my own bare hands. Arachnid looked amused. I'm sure you'll get your chance at revenge. Perhaps a test run is in order. She turned to Soundwave with sinister intent as she practically had an army under her complete and total control now. Eviscerate him. No. Hardshell said simply as he and the Insecticons present made no move to attack. What? Arachnid turned to Hardshell in shock. Our loyalty lies only to Lord Megatron. Hardshell stated. We will not betray him. How dare. Arachnid however was interrupted by Soundwave who replayed Shockwave's radio log through his recordings. Insecticons communicate on a specific ultrasonic frequency. I have found I can manipulate 85.7% of their species through this method. The exceptions being Hardshell, Sharpshot, and Kickback. Those anomalies appeared to be more evolved and require more finesse in their manipulation. You perfected the process. Arachnid questioned irritably to Soundwave who responded with a simple nod before suddenly grabbing Arachnid by the throat and pinning her against the wall. He then played a recording of Megatron for her to hear. You will find a way to work together. There will be no further fighting among our own ranks. If any of you try this again, you will all perish. Arachnid grimaced upon hearing those words again, even more so as she felt the pressure on her neck as Soundwave continued to squeeze to make sure she got the point. I yield. Soundwave then released her as he went to address the Insecticon hive to see how they might be useful to their cause. Arachnid meanwhile had pulled herself up as she glared at Soundwave from behind. She knew she couldn't take him, one of the few Cybertronians to even match Megatron in gladiator combat, and with her being watched by him so closely, she couldn't make a move to control the Insecticon hive as it seems the Decepticons have found a way to control them through their ultrasonic frequency communications. So, there was no way she could strike out on her own, yet. She would play along for now and simply wait for the right opportunity. Suzaku's mind. While still in the thralls of Megatron's cortical psychic patch, the honorary Britannian could honestly look in shock at what Megatron had just told him. You can't kick me out of the Britannian military. Suzaku quickly tried to form an argument. You don't have the authority. I'm Princess Euphemia's knight, only she or someone else in the royal family can dismiss me. Euphemia has no say in this matter. Megatron retorted. Even if you are her knight, I can easily convince someone else in her family with higher authority to not only dismiss your status, but even remove you from the military entirely. It can be done, and it will be, unless you can provide me with results. So, tell me, Suzaku Kururugi, how would you go about providing me said results? By, Suzaku stuttered before trying to stand firm. By following orders and by stopping the enemy. How? Megaron questioned. You keep saying what you'll do, but you never explain how. This has always been a problem for you Suzaku, you have a goal in mind but no plan to accomplish it, and you never learn. Your arrogance and stubbornness will trump your skills and resolve every time. It's why you've failed to defeat or even capture a single enemy. A series of memories soon played in Suzaku's mind, first being Bumblebee knocking him down away from Zero and CC at Narita, next his defeat at the hands of Optimus during the Battle of Port Yokosuka, then was his failure to properly apprehend Toto during his escape from prison. But there was one memory that stood out among the others. Stop it. Suzaku's memory of him trying to apprehend Mal replayed as the former tried to hold the later. Get your hands off me, Father Killer. Suzaku's pupils shrunk as even Megatron was caught by surprise at this revelation. Father Killer. The leader of the Decepticons questioned with interest. No. Suzaku panicked and tried to stop him. No. You can't. But it was too late, the memory of that very incident was already brought up and being watched. Father, you can't do this. The 10-year-old Suzaku tried to plead with his father, Genbu Kururugi. So many people will die if you do this. Better that, than live a life of slavery. Genbu argued. You would have Britannia destroy our people's spirit and livelihoods. I'm sure we can work something out with Britannia. We don't have to fight them. The young Suzaku continued. We can't fight them. They're too strong. I will not have Japan be remade into a puppet of this fascist regime. Genbu stated. Even if Japan dies, she will die fighting. This country will not join Britannia. No, I can't let you do this. Young Suzaku acted quickly as he pulled a kunai blade from the wall and pointed it to his father, his hands and eyes shaking. Genbu however wasn't convinced. Put that thing down before you hurt yourself, boy, he said as he marched over to the shaky Suzaku. You're a child, you can't understand how the world works. Britannia will never help Japan, or anyone else. All they live for is destruction. This is happening, and you can't stop it. He smacked his young son on the head to knock him to the ground. As the Prime Minister began to walk out however, Suzaku got up. Desperation mixing with his own instincts propelled him to drive the blade into his father's chest, shocking Genbu Kururugi as he fell to his hands and knees. Suzaku himself gasped in shock at what he just done. The memory came to an end as Suzaku's body shook, both in and outside the patch. The last thing he wanted was to see that memory again. He tried so hard to bury it, hoping it could never be resurfacing, but it seems that nothing ever stays buried forever. Now I see. Megatron spoke as Suzaku slowly turned around to see the look on Megatron's face, only to look in shock to see a smile was there. I understand, now it makes sense. This is why you joined the military. You really don't care what happens to Britannia or Japan, you just want to wash the blood off your hands. That's not true. Suzaku tried. I do care. Megatron however could see right through Suzaku. In the eyes of Britannia, you are an 11, someone who is expendable. You knew you would eventually die. They would send you to your death, and if it's for a cause you deem to be righteous, it will redeem yourself. I'm right, aren't I, Suzaku? Multiple memories displayed themselves for the pair. The first being Suzaku shot in the back after refusing to kill Lelouch during the Shinjuku incident, the second being in the Lancelot as he rushed into the collapsing hotel during the hotel jacking, the third was the more recent memory of him trying to prevent Zero or Optimus from leaving the bombardment on Shikini Island. Suzaku fell to his knees as he held his head, his whole body and eyes shaking with panic and fear, with a bit of realization thrown in the mix. He was almost tempted to scream, the same way he did when Mao revealed all this to him as well. I can only wonder who else knows of this. Megatron wondered aloud as the shocked Suzaku gazed up towards him. I'm quite certain the late Prime Minister's inner circle knows, having told the story of his suicide to the public. But, are they only ones? Does someone else know? So, you did do it, didn't you? They both looked the memory of Lelouch and Rai helping Suzaku once they learned the truth. You really did kill your own father. Lelouch, someone close to you. Megatron mused as he himself already knew this particular secret and chose to exploit it in order to properly manipulate Suzaku, who looked even more shocked as he tried once again to stop him. No, don't. But it was too late. Two memories replayed in Suzaku's mind. The first was Lelouch meeting Suzaku on the roof of Ashford Academy. 7 years since we used this signal, long time, huh? The memory of Lelouch spoke. The second was his reunion with the blind and crippled Nunnally later that night. Thank heaven. The memory of Nunnally cried as she held his hand close to her face. I knew it. I just knew you'd be alright. It's been a long time, Nunnally. The memory of Suzaku smiled. Lelouch and Nunnally. Megatron mused as Suzaku panicked even more. They wouldn't happen to be Prince Lelouch v Britannia and Princess Nunnally v Britannia, would they? Before Suzaku could even offer a protest, they both saw the image of the young prince and princess's arrival in Japan and meeting Suzaku for the first time. The resemblance was enough to give Megatron the confirmation he supposedly needed. Well, what do you know? Megatron said with a chuckle. The children of the late, Marianne the Flash, live after all. I'm sure Charles would be most happy to hear. No, you can't. Suzaku exclaimed as he pleaded, which only caused Megatron to sneer even more, knowing he found his weakness. Why not? You were the one who said Britannia can change from within. Why are you afraid? Megatron mused. Is it because deep down you know that this empire cannot truly change? That you're afraid your dear friends would be exploited by their own family? Seeing the shaking and panicked look on Suzaku would all but confirm it. Yes, I believe that is the case, isn't it? And with this, I believe we have found something you truly fear more than your own death. Something that we should keep to ourselves, wouldn't you agree? Suzaku looked quite stunned by what he said. What are you? I've changed my mind, Suzaku. Megatron told him. I will allow you to remain within our ranks, you may even stay as Euphemia's knight. However, let me make one thing perfectly clear, young Kururugi. From this point forward, you will do everything I say, even if I order you to execute an enemy. If you refuse an order, even a minor one, I will tell Charles that Lelouch and Nunnally still live, and I will leave their fates to him. Am I clear? It was a nightmare for Suzaku. The two people that he wanted to protect more than anything had just been exposed and were threatened to be revealed. But he still had a chance to protect them, and he would do whatever it takes, even if it means selling his own soul to the devil. Suzaku then bowed before the leader of the Decepticons as he gave his answer. Yes, Lord Megatron. I will do what you ask. Just please, leave them alone. You have my word. Megatron sneered before speaking aloud. Shockwave, we are done here. Shockwave, Rumble, and Frenzy had seen everything that had transpired in the patch and had been given the order to end it, prompting Shockwave to walk towards Megatron's stasis body as Frenzy and Rumble did the same for Suzaku. And that's a wrap, Rumble said as Frenzy disconnected the patch, allowing Suzaku to wake up. Megatron sures know how to patch things up, Kururugi. Frenzy mocked, causing the only human present to hang his head down in shame. Shockwave had likewise disconnected the patch from Megatron, allowing him to awaken as well before glancing at the human under his command. Suzaku Kururugi, you are dismissed. Suzaku, albeit shakingly, got up from the lab table and proceeded to walk out from the lab, but with his back turned to the Decepticons, he allowed the horror-filled and regretful face to be visible as dread filled his whole being. Lelouch, Nunnally, I'm so sorry. He thought to himself as he left, the door closing behind him, leaving Megatron alone with Shockwave and the two mini-cons. Oh Lord Megatron, while you were out of it, Soundwave contacted us. Frenzy told his leader. He found a whole hive of Insecticons on that one island, and they're all under our control. Rumble finished. Excellent. Megatron sneered. Lord Megatron. Shockwave spoke up. I do not quite understand what we have gained from this. You've already known the status of the V Britannia siblings, as well as Lelouch's identity as Zero. This may have appeared to only shake Suzaku's resolve, which could logically lead to him possibly defecting to the Autobots and the Black Knights. Maybe, but I have found a way to properly pull on his strings. Megatron replied. And even if you were right Shockwave, and he does end up joining Optimus and Lelouch, it's a small price to pay compared to what we've gained recently, with both the Insecticon hive, as well as knowledge of Charles's precious Ragnarok. By the way, VV is still locked up here. Just letting you know. Rumble informed. Good. Megatron nodded as he smirked evilly. Suzaku Kururugi may be currently Euphemia's knight, but he is also my pawn. The Ark. Lelouch sat in the living quarters of the bridge along with Shirley and Rai as Fix-It wheeled up with small container in his hands. Optimus and Bulkhead were all present as well. In regards to the others, RC and Cliffjumper were staying near Colin's place as she was worried her identity could be revealed to the military, so the trio stood on standby in order to help Colin's mother at a moment's notice. Wheeljack and Ratchet worked with Rockshata and her team in terms of modifying and improving upon the recently acquired Gawain, and Ironhide was with Ogi, Toto, and Tamaki in helping some new recruits train with their nightmares. Fix-It handed the container to Lelouch. 2 specially made contact lenses as you requested. Fix-It reported as Lelouch took the lenses out and placed them in both his eyes. You should still be able to see properly, while the lenses should also prevent your Geass from accidentally controlling anybody within your eyesight. How did they feel? Pretty comfortable. Lelouch replied. We should at least test them to make sure they work. Optimus proposed. Do it on me. Bulkhead volunteered, much to everyone's surprise. Well, CC did say it got stronger. Maybe it can affect bots and cons now. I don't want to take that big of a risk. Lelouch replied. CC also said if I use it only 2 or 3 more times, I might lose control. I'd rather not have that happen until I fully master its power. Then use it on me. Shirley immediately stood up, much to everyone's further surprise. You haven't used it on me before. Plus, it doesn't have to be anything serious, just ask me to do jumping jacks or something. When it looked like he was about to protest, Shirley gave him a assuring smile. Lulu, it's alright. Let me help you. I want to help you. Instinctively, Lelouch glanced towards Optimus, who gave a nod of approval before he turned toward the schoolgirl turned Black Knight. All right, surely, he activated his Geass under his contact lenses. Hop on 1 foot 5 times. However, the sigil did not enter her eyes and she still had full control. Nope, I don't want to, she said with a smirk. This was pleasing to the group as they all smiled. It would appear the contact lenses are a distress. Access. Success. Great, now if we can only fix up that glitching of yours. Bulkhead joked, resulting in Shirley laughing and even Lelouch smirking. However, once he paid a glance at Rai, Bulkhead noticed something odd. Hey, Rai, are you alright? Rai was brought out of whatever kind of trance he was in as he looked toward them with his pale face, bags under his eyes, which appeared to be a bit red themselves. What? Rai, are you alright? Shirley asked with concern. You looked like you hadn't slept for days. I just had some trouble, sleeping, yeah what you said, Rai stuttered, but both Optimus and Lelouch knew something was off. Rai, is something the matter? Optimus asked, but Rai didn't appear to answer as his body shook slightly. It stopped when Lelouch stood up and he placed a hand on his shoulder, and he gave his friend a concerning yet serious look. Seeing how it looked like they weren't going to let him leave without hearing what was on his mind, he spoke. I got my memories back. That took them all by surprise. All of them. Shirley was the first to smile. Rai, that's great. I'm so happy for you. However, Rai was far from happy about it. In all honesty though, I wish I hadn't. To say they were stunned was an understatement. What are you talking about? Bulkhead asked his partner. Rai, you've been wanting to get your memories back for a long time, now you're saying you actually don't want them. That doesn't make sense. Maybe you remembered an unpleasant memory. Fix-It suggested. I have often heard that humans are able to overcome such unpleasantries by speaking their minds and their friends offer emotional support. So, please speak your mind so that we may offer said support. Rai wasn't sure where to start first, but he spoke nonetheless. First off, my name isn't Rai. It's Kaiserin von Britannia. That caused all their eyes to widen in shock, even Optimus was stunned. My father's is Charles Z. Britannia. Lelouch's eyes widened at that revelation as he shared a surprised glance with Optimus. What? But his revealed half-brother wasn't done yet. My mother's name, Sakura Kururugi. Rai continued. Kururugi? Shirley questioned. As in, Suzaku. Sakura was the elder sister of Genbu Kururugi. Rai replied. But, they never married. They had an affair that was kept secret, as well as my existence, and that of my sister. Sister. Lelouch, Shirley, Fix-It, and Bulkhead all exclaimed at the same time. Her name was Irina von Britannia. Rai continued. So, you are, Optimus spoke. Yeah, I'm not only half Britannian and half Japanese, I'm Lelouch's half-brother, and Suzaku's cousin. Rai confirmed. Oh, and you know that woman from the Knights of Round, Nonette Enneagram. Yeah, she was my personal knight. Though they were all surprised by this, Shirley was the first to speak up. Wait, if you and your sister were both supposed to be kept secret, where did you live? In the Philippines, it's not that far from Japan. Rai answered. It was also considered neutral territory between the expanding Britannia as well as Japan, so it does seem a logical place to hide a pair of half-breed royals who would likely be ostracized and even lynched by the rest of the royal family. Lelouch said. I also heard it suffered enormous casualties from the Britannian military as well as the civilians who lived there when it was invaded alongside Japan 7 years ago. Fix-It put in, causing Rai to wince rather hardly. So, you're the son of that wannabe Megatron, big deal. We got another one right here and he's a personified badass. Bulkhead stated. Thank you, Bulkhead. Lelouch paid him a quick thanks before turning back to his friend, revealed half-brother. I can't imagine how much of a shock this is for you Rai, but... I'm not done yet. Rai said. I know how I got my Geass. VV. Optimus asked. Yep. Rai confirmed. I didn't know he was my uncle. He just came to me one day and offered me a contract. He would give me the power to help protect my mother and sister. I loved them both with all my heart, they were my entire world, along with Nonette, who was my only friend. And in return, I would help him and his brother fulfill their dream. He used air quotes. Though he didn't say what it was. I knew how dangerous the rest of the royal family was, and I didn't trust my father, so I accepted it, and I got my Geass. Not long after that, Japan was invaded, along with the Philippines. We didn't even have a proper military, so there was no way to fight the invading army. I'm so sorry, Shirley tried to say to him. But, I'm sure whatever they did to you and your family, we can find a way to make sure they get brought to justice. If Lelouch and Optimus turn over enough rocks, they can find out who did it and… That's just the thing though, Shirley. Rai looked up as his face was filled with so much emotional pain. I'm the one who did it. Nobody saw that coming. Bulkhead, Shirley, Lelouch, Fix-It, even Optimus were completely stunned by that revelation. Britannia invaded our home, but I didn't want to lose it, it was all my family had, Rai stuttered as a turmoil of sadness, anger, and regret filled his being. Something in me snapped. I used my Geass and ordered everyone to fight back, everyone. Even my own mother and sister. They grabbed guns, knives, swords, gardening tools, whatever was handy and fought back. It was a bloodbath. When it was over, I walked through a field that was red with blood before. Before I found them, tears were already in his eyes. My mother, and my sweet little sister, both their bodies filled with holes and lying dead on the ground. Shirley gave a gasp. She covered her mouth in horror. Bulkhead and Fix-It were more shocked than they've ever been, even Lelouch looked in a mixture of shock and sympathy. Optimus had nothing but complete and utter sympathy for the tormented youth. The woman who gave birth to me, who loved me, and my little Arena, who looked up to me, her big brother, Rai was already sobbing. And I got them killed. I lost everything and I wanted to end it. Everyone gasped as they all had a good idea what that meant. I picked up a gun and aimed it at my head. His tone then became one filled with anger. Then, he came, that little monster VV, who didn't even have an ounce of empathy, told me that I had to fulfill his end of our contract. I turned the gun on him and unloaded it. When that didn't work, I tried to strangle him with my bare hands, telling him and his brother they can go to hell. He shouted in anger as tears of sorrow and rage flowed down his face. Then, he put me in the thought elevator. That really got their attention. A thought elevator? Optimus asked. Similar to the one I destroyed on Kaname Island. That very same one, in fact. Rai answered, still filled with anger and sorrow. I was frozen inside it, some kind of stasis I guess, for 7 years. It's why I'm the same age as I was then. I tried to resist, but I couldn't, so, I used my Geass on myself, to make me forget. So, I wouldn't help VV with his plans, right before I was sealed away. Despite the enormous bomb that was dropped, this answered many of their questions, including why Rai had amnesia in the first place. How did you get out? Fix-It asked. Clovis found me. Rai answered, still in his emotional state. He discovered the thought elevator a little bit after he began his experiments on CC and pulled me out of it. He then put me through the same kind of experiments. Then, when Colin and her team stole the canister containing CC, I escaped during the confusion, found my way to Ashford and, you all know the rest. Now they knew, they all finally had all the answers to the mystery surrounding Rai, where he came from, how he got Geass, all of it. But they also understood why Rai wished he never remembered. Who would want to remember a past as awful as that? Even Lelouch looked in utter sympathy at his half-brother, while his own childhood was surely a living hell, it was nothing compared to what Rai had to go through. Ray's entire body began to shake. It's my fault. He placed his hands on his head, like he was about to pull out his hair, his eyes red and swollen with the tears of grief and rage. I killed them. I killed my own family. He'd be so proud of me. Dear old daddy would be so proud. I can practically hear him and Vivi both laughing in my head, telling me I'm just as bad as they are. We're the same. And they're right. How can I be a Black Knight? I can't be, I don't deserve to be, I'm a monster. His ranting was brought to a halt as Shirley pulled him into an embrace, wrapping her arms around him so tightly and refusing to let go. Stop, Rai, stop it right now. She told him as he was beyond surprised. I won't let you say anything so horrible about yourself. You're not a monster. She pulled away but kept a firm grip on his shoulders as she looked into his eyes. You didn't want all that to happen, did you? She asked as she looked like she was about to cry in pity for him. It was Vivi who gave you that power, and it was that monster of an emperor that ordered your home to be invaded. They did that to you, you didn't ask for it. But Rai, look at me. Shirley continued. You are not a monster. You've saved so many people, including me. You made a mistake, but it's not like you wanted so many people to get hurt. I don't know how I can help you, but I want to. You're one of my best friends and I care about you so much, and seeing you torture yourself like this only breaks my heart. She was already in tears herself. It wasn't your fault. She's right. Bulkhead leaned down to be on equal level with him as Rai directed his attention to the green Autobot. I can't even begin to tell you how sorry I am that you went through all that, especially by yourself. But kid, you've done so much good when you came here, you even saved my skid plate. Yeah, what you went through was horrible, but I don't care who you were before or what kind of mistakes you've made in the past, I know who you are, Rai. You're a good person, someone I can honestly say is my best bud alongside Wheeljack, a fellow wrecker. No matter what happened back then, or what will happen in the future, I will always have your back. You're my friend and that is never going to change. Bulkhead, Shirley, Rai didn't know what to say as he looked in between their smiling and supportive faces. I truly am sorry as well you had to endure all of that. Fix-It said sincerely. But I can promise you are not the only one. There are several other Autobots and Black Knights present who can understand where you're coming from, and I know we will all be here to support you, just as I am now, glitch or no. Lelouch walked up to his half-brother next. Rai, when I lost my mother, I only had Nunnally and I didn't open myself up to anyone for a long time, not until Suzaku helped me break through my shell, and even then, I still had trouble trusting others. That is, until I met the Autobots, and you, and everyone else. You all helped me to see things differently, you changed me. I truly am sorry for your loss, but you've gained some things too. You've gained plenty of loyal friends and, you also have a brother who wants to help you. Lelouch put a hand on his shoulder and smiled. You also have another sister. I'm sure Nunnally would be thrilled to know you're part of her family. And I know she would want to help you too. I told her everything before I came here, and she still trusts me, she can do that for you too. Rai almost couldn't believe it. He revealed his horrible past to everyone present, but they still offered their support, compassion, and friendships to him and said how they wanted to help him. He already knew what kind of people the Autobots and most of his fellow Black Knights were, so he wasn't too surprised to hear all this, but his heart still ached with this pain. Rai. Optimus was the one to deliver final remarks. We can never truly replace what you've lost. But you have friends and a family that will support you even knowing your past. Your actions among us have proven that you are a noble and caring human being, and that is the person we choose to know you as. Not as Kaiserin von Britannia, the son of Charles Z. Britannia, but as Rai of the Black Knights, a wrecker, an ally to the Autobots, the Autobot leader smiled. And a most trusted friend. That was it, that was all Rai needed to hear as he broke down in a sob of both sadness and joy. Happiness that despite his past being revealed, he still had friends and family who cared for him and wanted to help him. Shirley immediately pulled him into a hug as she cried too but also smiled, while he buried his face into her shoulder and continued to cry. Lelouch also smiled as he put a hand on his brother's back in support. Bulkhead stayed close as he smiled and nodded, along with Fix-It and Optimus who also gave their own sympathetic, yet compassionate expressions to their friend and comrade. Dreadwing's vehicle mode soared toward Cornelia's mobile base before it slowed its approach and descended toward the ground for a landing. Once it came to a stop, its cockpit opened up to allow Euphemia to step outside, right before Dreadwing transformed. Thank you Dreadwing, Euphemia said as she was about to walk toward the base. Princess Euphemia, does your sister know of your arrival? Dreadwing asked. No, but this can't wait. I have to talk to her. Euphemia said seriously. Did you hear anything from Suzaku? Lord Megatron just released him. Dreadwing answered, much to Euphemia's surprise. Is he okay? What happened with Suzaku? Euphemia asked almost urgently. I do not know the details, but Megatron has claimed that he still has Suzaku's allegiance. Dreadwing responded, causing Euphemia to wince. And if I'm being honest, I have a rather bad feeling about it. I've tried to contact them before, only to be turned down. Something doesn't quite feel right. Euphemia noticed how reluctant Dreadwing was with all of this. She had yet to tell him what she learned from Lelouch and Optimus on Kaname Island, but maybe she could soon, and they could have a potential ally. Like Suzaku, Euphemia knew Dreadwing was a good individual, and if he knew the truth, he would hopefully side with them, or at the very least, leave Megatron. I shouldn't be long, please wait out here for me, Euphemia said as she walked inside, while Dreadwing gave an affirmative nod. Inside the mobile base, Cornelia spoke with Guilford and several of her officers when one soldier came in to address the princess. Viceroy, Princess Euphemia is here, and she wishes to have an audience with you. Guilford and the officers were rather stunned by this, and while Cornelia was rather surprised, she also had something important going on here. I don't have time for this. Make the time, Cornelia, Euphemia stated as she walked into the control room herself. Euphemia, I'm very busy right now. Whatever it is, I'm sure it can wait, Cornelia said, keeping her eyes focused on what was in front of her. No, it can't, Euphemia stated. Cornelia, I know you never listen to me, but what I have to tell you could determine whether or not Britannia has a future. Maybe even the whole planet. Though Guilford and the officers were more than a little shocked by this, Cornelia turned around and saw the look in Euphemia's eyes. That look told the Viceroy that her younger sister wasn't going to leave until she had voiced her thoughts. Give us a moment, Cornelia told Guilford and the officers present. Yes, Your Highness. Guilford bowed as he and everyone else left the control room, leaving the two royal sisters alone. How did you even get all the way out here? Cornelia asked Euphemia. Dreadwing flew me in, Euphy answered. I see. Cornelia responded before a concerning look formed on her face. Schneisel told me what had happened on Kaname Island. Are you alright? Yes, I'm fine, and that's why I'm here. Euphemia began. While I was stranded, I made contact with Optimus Prime and Zero. That got Cornelia's attention. I learned some things while in their company. Did you see Zero's face? Cornelia said immediately, while also interrupting her. Did he take off his mask in front of you? No, he didn't, Euphemia answered, much to Cornelia's disappointment. Though she did feel bad about lying like that, she didn't want to reveal Lelouch's secret till she knew he and Nunnally would be safe. But that's not why I'm here. Cornelia, we have to end our alliance with the Decepticons. Cornelia gave Euphemia her full undivided attention as the younger princess continued. Megatron has been lying to us, Euphemia explained. The Autobots aren't war criminals, they're practically refugees. Cybertron wasn't destroyed because of the war, it was destroyed because Megatron poisoned it. He wanted to conquer and overthrow Cybertron's leadership for himself, but when he couldn't, he just settled with simply destroying the planet. Do you have any proof of this? Cornelia asked. I heard everything from Optimus Prime, Euphemia replied. Cornelia, I know you've had your doubts about Megatron, just as I've had, but they're not unfounded. Megatron is a monster. We have to end our partnership with him, or else he may very well destroy Britannia, if not the entire Earth. Euphy, I understand what you are saying, Cornelia responded. I never trusted Megatron, even from the very beginning. Unfortunately, though, I don't have a say in the matter, you heard Father's orders. Besides, Britannia is already facing a grave adversary in the face of the Black Knights and the Autobots, starting another confrontation with a force even greater than that could lead the Empire to ruin. We can't fight two wars at once. We don't have to, Euphemia stated. Let's offer a truce to the Autobots and Black Knights. Cornelia looked to her sister in disbelief. What? Even with the orders our father gave, you still have the power as Viceroy to make that call. Euphemia continued. Offer a ceasefire and a chance to negotiate with Zero and Optimus so we can find a way to work together and repel the Decepticons. Negotiate with them, Cornelia voiced in outrage. With the same alien that humiliated me multiple times. With the same terrorist who murdered our own brother. Cornelia, did you even bother to investigate the circumstances surrounding Clovis? Why he did something so horrible? Euphemia questioned. He massacred so many innocent people, and we're not even judging his actions. Those who died in Shinjuku were 11s, Clovis a member of the royal family. Are you saying the lives of those we don't even know are worth even more than our own flesh and blood? Cornelia exclaimed. 11s, that's how you see them, that's how everyone sees them. Euphemia spoke in a tone indicating she was disappointed. And that is why the world hates us. Britannia is wrong, all this fighting is wrong, our father is wrong, we are wrong. Cornelia gave a slight scoff. Oh, is that so? Well, maybe I was wrong then. Wrong to think you would help to contribute to our nation, to see all this fighting through to the end. The end of what, Cornelia? The world, Euphemia exclaimed. Because that is exactly what's going to happen if we don't stop. When Optimus told me how the Decepticons destroyed Cybertron, I couldn't help but realize that Britannia is almost exactly the same. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We're destroying the world, Cornelia. Britannia is trying to bring order to the world. Cornelia argued. You think we're the only ones fighting? Look at the Chinese Federation or the EU. Look at all the countries and empires that have existed long before Britannia. Fighting has existed since the dawn of history. That doesn't make it right. Euphemia yelled. Britannia has more scientific knowledge and power than most other countries. We could be using that to help people, but no, we're using it to kill. Have you seen the ghettos? Have you seen the people who live there? The destruction we leave in our wake, the lives we ruin, we're the problem, Cornelia. Britannia can do so much good, but instead we're only hurting people. We're not bringing order, we're only making more chaos. The Black Knights and Autobots aren't the terrorists. We are. Cornelia looked as if her sister had just suddenly grown a second head. Her look of shock and disbelief turned into a glare. How dare! And it's not just with the rest of the world, it's with our own people too. Euphemia continued. Our own family. You say I don't care about Clovis? Question mark. Look at our father. He didn't even shed a single tear at his funeral, he didn't even pay him the proper respects. He just said our own brother's death was a stepping stone toward progress. And it's not just him. Look at what happened to Lelouch and Nunnally. They didn't do anything wrong. All Lelouch wanted to know was why his own mother was murdered. And what did he get for that? Exile. Our father exiled him just for wanting to seek justice for his own mother's death. Euphemia was almost on the verge of crying. Are you saying that they deserved to be sent away? Or worse, that our father practically ordered them to be killed when they invaded Japan? Exclamation mark quote. As Euphemia continued to rant, Cornelia's glare only hardened as her fists clenched. We betrayed them, Cornelia. Our own brother and sister. They were thrown away and left for dead and we didn't lift a single finger to help them. Tears were already flowing down her eyes. I hate myself every day for that and knowing I can't do anything to change it. But you're a viceroy. You have the power to make a change, but you won't. So many people are suffering, and you won't even bat them an eye. I don't blame the Black Knights or the Autobots one bit for waging war against us. You're just like him, Cornelia. You're just like our father. Smack. Asterisk. Almost on instinct, Cornelia had swung the back of her fist to her sister's face and knocked her down onto the ground. However, once she realized what she did, Cornelia's look of anger turned into shock as she saw Euphemia look up toward her, tears mixed in with a look of betrayal and disbelief her eyes as she held her cheek where Cornelia struck her. I didn't. However, Euphemia was already on her feet, her back turned toward her older sister. I'm sorry, it was a mistake to come here. Euphy hid her tearful expression as she tried to speak professionally. You don't have to worry, Viceroy. I won't bother you ever again. She then proceeded to walk out, leaving Cornelia alone. Once she was alone, Cornelia became filled with regret as she walked up to sit on her throne. There was a part of her that agreed with what her sister had said. Like Euphemia, Cornelia hated herself for not protecting Lelouch and Nunnally, and she wished she was with Lelouch that day he confronted his father. Even if she got exiled with them, she could have protected them herself. She stifled a sob as she pressed her hand against her face. Your Highness. She lowered her hand slightly to reveal Guilford had entered the room as he looked with concern. Are you all right? How much did you hear? Cornelia asked bluntly. Quite a bit. It was rather loud. Guilford answered, causing Cornelia to sigh even deeper. Your Highness, permission to speak freely. Granted. It's not my place to pass judgment based on your current actions, or what happened in the past with your family. Guilford began. But I know you're not a bad person. Cornelia paid him a glance as he continued. And if I'm being honest, I don't fully trust the Emperor either, especially with how complacent he seems to be regarding the action of the Decepticons, whom I have no trust for whatsoever. If something happened, and I was forced to choose between you or the Emperor, I would follow you without a moment's hesitation. I know you would. Cornelia replied honestly. You've been nothing short of loyal to me, Guilford. And I truly appreciate that. Your Highness. An officer urgently ran inside. What now? Cornelia asked with a groan, not in the mood for this. The enemy has destroyed the Great Kanman Bridge in Kyushu block. What? Cornelia questioned as she and Guilford were both stunned by this report. They've also cut off vehicle access at 4 other points. The officer continued. And large numbers of assault landing craft are moving into the Genkai Sea. The Chinese Federation, Guilford exclaimed in surprise. Have they made a declaration of war? Cornelia questioned. No, Viceroy. The craft are bearing the flag of Japan. Battle at Kyushu. We hereby declare the resurrection of Japan as a lawful, independent, and sovereign nation. This was a declaration made by a middle-aged Japanese politician, seen on the latest news report that was broadcasted on the ARC's main screen with Optimus, Zero, Ratchet, Tamaki, Ironhide, Diethard, and Ogi watching. Atsushi Sawazaki, leader of the forces that have occupied the Fukuoka military base, was chief cabinet administrator of the Kururugi administration in the former nation of Japan. The reporter on the screen explained. After the war, he fled to the Chinese Federation, but is apparently making his move in response to the recent civil unrest caused by Zero and these still mysterious beings known as the Autobots. Whether they and the Black Knights have played a role in these unfolding events is still under investigation. We're not part of it. Tamaki exclaimed. What do Kyoto or Peace Mark say about this? Ratchet asked Diethard. Neither knew this was coming. Diethard responded. Kyoto was only just notified about his unilateral claim over the Sakuradite mining rights. Why make his move now? Ironhide questioned. Is it only because we're causing such a commotion here in Japan? Zero, Optimus, it's our move, what are we gonna do about this? Ogi asked the two. Let's not jump on the bandwagon just yet. Zero answered. It seems he's gaining support from the Chinese Federation, we should know the full story before making any moves. But the real question is, whether or not the Decepticons may become involved. Yes, that does leave cause for concern. Optimus said. On one end, Megatron may view this as beneath him, as it does not seem like Sawazaki or the forces of the Chinese Federation have any Cybertronian allies. But as Zero said, we should understand the full situation before we make any moves of our own. The Nemesis. Dreadwing walked onto the bridge of the Decepticon warship where Megatron was standing at the end, his back turned to the Seeker. Lord Megatron, I trust you have become aware of the situation in Kyushu. Soundwave has informed me. Megatron acknowledged as the silent Decepticon hung to the side. I believe that this Sawazaki individual is merely a puppet for the opposing nation called the Chinese Federation. Dreadwing informed. Your point? Megatron questioned, keeping his back turned. This could cause a great deal of unrest within Area 11, even more so than before. Dreadwing said, I propose assembling the Seekers in a small squadron to infiltrate Kyushu and eliminate the threat. There will be no need for that. Megatron said, much to Dreadwing's surprise. It does not appear to be the work of the Autobots and their Black Knight allies, so it is of no concern to us. Let Cornelia handle it. But Master, Dreadwing attempted to protest. That is an order. Megatron insisted, finally turning around to address the Seeker in question. Unless Optimus or Zero become involved, this is little more than a skirmish between two bickering nations and we hold no part in it, and that is final. Dreadwing merely lowered his head with a frustrated expression. As you wish, Lord Megatron. But, you should be aware that Suzaku Kururugi has been selected by Prince Schneisel to take part in the battle to reclaim Kyushu. He is a soldier of Britannia, of course. Megatron said as if it were rather obvious. But he is also one of our own soldiers. Dreadwing replied in protest. One that is on very thin ice, given his recent actions. The leader of the Decepticons stated. Now, is there anything else you wish to inform me? Though hesitant at first, Dreadwing decided to back down. No, Master. Then you are dismissed. Megatron told him, prompting Dreadwing to turn around with a reluctant scowl on his face. Meanwhile, the Avalon continued to fly across the clouds, making its way towards Kyushu. Though its commander, Schneisel, was not present, the Camelot division was on the bridge, along with all 4 knights of the round as they saw the report of Sawazaki occupation of Kyushu. Wow, talk about a blast from the past. Gino commented. Who would have thought the old Japanese government would team up with the Chinese Federation? More likely the Federation is using Sawazaki as a cover for their true objectives. Monica assumed. Agreed, and given the civil unrest caused by our conflict with the Decepticons against the Black Knights and the Autobots, it makes sense they'd try to take advantage of the chaos. Anya said. Speaking of which, what have the Decepticons said about this? Nonette asked in a somewhat suspicious tone towards Lloyd. When I called Starscream, his exact words were, if you need our help to deal with some lowly humans, then Britannia leaves even more to be desired than I thought. Lloyd said casually. You know, the typical, superior alien, lowly alien, shtick. At this point, I'm not even surprised. Nonette rolled her eyes. But I am actually a bit surprised, the Decepticons aren't involved in this at all. Why would they be? Gino asked. I get we're not best buddies with them right now, but I don't think they'd switch sides to the Chinese Federation. I don't think they were ever on our side. Monica said. Given their recent actions, I think it's safe to say they're only using us just to get an advantage over the Autobots and the Black Knights. Suffice to say, I've completely lost my trust in them. Except Dreadwing, he's still cool. Gino put in. Putting all that aside, how's Suzaku doing? Lloyd asked Cecile. He says he'll do whatever the mission demands. Cecile answered. I still can't believe he actually quit being a knight. Gino said with genuine concern. Sure. He made a few mistakes, who hasn't? I believe the situation is more complicated than that. Anya said. What about Prince Schneisel, where is he? Cecile asked the knights. He's in the settlement, trying to keep a panic from breaking out. Monica informed. But he said he'd have a strategy in place soon if Cornelia can't penetrate the enemy front line. Avalon doesn't have its commander right now, but we have to finish this up if we want to counter the Gefgen disturber. Lloyd commented, as Nonette and Gino glanced back, though they couldn't see him, both of them were thinking in concern with Suzaku, who no doubt was all by himself near the Lancelot with a great deal of troubling thought in his mind. Flashback, yesterday. Suzaku stood in front of Euphemia in her office as he handed her back the knight pin she gave him. I've dishonored you. Suzaku said to her, I'm not worthy to be your knight. If this is about you disobeying orders, my brother Schneisel said it was an unusual situation and you shouldn't be blamed for it. Euphemia said. It's not just that, Suzaku's voice began to crack. I can't do this. Euphemia looked to him with concern. Has knighthood become a burden for you? Something that troubles you? No, I'm grateful for it. Suzaku replied. Then why? Euphemia questioned. I killed my own father. Suzaku revealed, causing Euphemia to look at him with absolute shock. I was never punished for it, I just lived on like nothing happened. But even that isn't it, my actions, have put people that I care about in danger. What kind of person am I? That I put people that I love in jeopardy, while I'm being protected. His eyes shook as tears were almost ready to fall. Someone like me doesn't deserve this. He put his pin in Yuffie's hands and closed them around it. I'm sorry, Yuffie. He turned around and began to leave. Wait, Suzaku, where are you going to go now? She stopped him, but while he did stop, he didn't turn around to face her. You're not going back to the Decepticons, are you? Suzaku said nothing in response, which was all the confirmation she needed. Suzaku, please, you can't go back to them. Euphemia practically begged. They're not what Megatron says they are. He's a monster, he's just using you, Suzaku. Even if you're no longer my knight, that doesn't mean we can't find a solution. Please. You can't go back to them. I'm ordering you not to go back. Tears were already streaming down her eyes. Suzaku clenched his fists as his whole body shook. Tears were built up in his own eyes as well, but he forced them back. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. But I can't obey that order. Forgive me. He left her office, leaving a saddened Euphemia as she fell to her knees and placed one hand over her mouth as she cried alone. End flashback. A raging storm had formed over Kyushu, which made it almost impossible for the Britannian forces to advance any further. Any and all aquatic Portland nightmares that made an attempt to get close were instantly shot down as all airships couldn't get through either due to the tempest. Princess Cornelia, we're taking too many losses. Guilford reported to the Viceroy as they were on a carrier ship outside the battlefield. This tempest is preventing us from using our air power. We'll have to delay the landing operation until the weather changes. Cornelia could only scowl as she knew her knight was correct. It's a stroke of good fortune that this storm hit, the Chinese General Cao commented as he stood next to Sawazaki within the occupied base. We must use it to tighten our grip on Kyushu. You see, General Cao, heaven is on our side. Sawazaki boasted. And soon, we'll have even stand side by side with Titans. You're certain these Autobot beings will side with us? Cao asked with concern. Based on what we've seen, it seems as though there are other metallic beings they seem to be in conflict with besides Britannia. I'm quite certain we'll come to terms with them. Sawazaki smirked. What's the old saying, the enemy of my enemy? And that prison fight that was broadcasted nationwide has shown that Britannia is starting to lose its grip. Even that wretched emperor hasn't made a statement, showing that even he is scared. Once they lose Japan entirely, that pitiful empire may completely fall apart entirely. Tokyo settlement. Martial law is not necessary. Schneisel said to Darlton and a few Britannian officers in his own personal office. Such measures would only upset and frighten people. Contact EU. Foreign Minister Gandolfi. Oh, and put a call into the Totama Agency in Cambodia. Prince Schneisel, using the Totama Agency could be a. Darlton attempted to protest, but was interrupted by Euphemia's entering the office. Prime Minister. Euphemia addressed her older half-brother professionally. Yes, Euphi, is something wrong? Schneisel asked in a friendly manner. Is there anything I can do to help? I'm the sub-viceroy of Area 11, I should be assisting you. Euphemia offered. Thank you, just your offer to help me is more than enough. Schneisel said. But Euphemia tried to protest. The Viceroy gave strict orders that you not be entangled in this matter, Princess. Darlton told her. She did. Euphemia asked in minor surprise. Is this because I choose my knight without her consent? Or is it because of the fight we had? That took Darlton by surprise. You got into an argument with the Viceroy. Apparently, he wasn't aware of that. Please understand, Euphi. Schneisel chose to intervene. Cornelia can't take any chances now, the situation is much too treacherous. You mean? Euphemia's eyes shook slightly, having a good idea what he was implying. Darlton, concerning the matter we were discussing, I know someone who has a way in with them, so I will ask for help. Schneisel addressed the knight. Yes, Your Highness. Darlton nodded. Schneisel, there's something else I need to talk to you about. Euphemia got his attention. It's about the Decepticons, please you have to listen. However, Schneisel raised his hand. Euphi, I'm sure whatever you have to discuss regarding the Decepticons is important, but right now we've got our hands full with the current situation. I'm sorry, but it'll have to wait. Euphemia had left the building with a distraught look on her face. Even though she couldn't help with the situation in Kyushu, she at least hoped she could tell her brother about the Decepticons' true colors, but much like with Cornelia, it seems her attempts were all for naught. However, her distraught thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a blue fighter jet flying down toward her, which slowed its descent to transform into Dreadwing. Dreadwing. Euphemia was honestly surprised to see him here. Princess Euphemia, where is Suzaku? Dreadwing asked. I had been attempting to make contact, but I have had no response. He's on the Avalon, approaching Kyushu. Euphemia answered. Though he had his answer, Dreadwing noticed the troubling look in Euphemia's eyes. Is something the matter, Your Highness? Dreadwing, did Megatron order Suzaku to resign as my knight? Euphemia questioned. To say Dreadwing was surprised was an understatement. What? Suzaku resigned as your knight? Euphemia was slightly caught off guard. So, you didn't know? How did this happen? Why would he resign? Dreadwing questioned urgently. He said he did something that he was never punished for and people he cared about were placed in danger. Euphemia answered. But he never went into the details. Dreadwing had a serious expression on his face. Could this be the issue regarding his father? Is that the reason? Dreadwing, Euphemia got his attention again. Please, you're the only Decepticon I can trust. Please, I'm begging you, help Suzaku. I don't care if he doesn't want it, I want you to help protect him. He means so much to me, even more than a soldier, please. she begged. The seeker was surprised by this request, but he understood. He easily noticed that there was a connection between Suzaku and Euphemia, and for that reason, he would assist both of them however he could. I will, I promise. Dreadwing nodded, much to Euphemia's relief. Princess Euphemia, whatever reason it is that has caused you to distrust the Decepticons, I promise you can trust me. I will look after Suzaku Kururugi for you. Thank you. Euphemia smiled as Dreadwing gave a small smile of his own before transforming and flying off. Once he was gone, Euphemia reached into her pocket and pulled out the special communications device Lelouch gave her back on Kaname Island. Ashford Academy, Student Council Room. After all our hard work getting ready, it looks like they're gonna cancel the school festival. Millie said as the room was nothing short of a mess, with all sorts of boxes and supplies scattered across the floor. That's hardly a huge consideration since we're at war. Rivals commented as he worked on a laptop. Did you say, war? Nina asked in surprise. Gino texted me. Rivals answered. They're using this, government in exile, thing as a smokescreen, but this is a war with the Chinese Federation. Oh, I see, Nina said. Nina, what about the booze we were planning to borrow from the art museum? Millie asked her. I'm going there today. Nina answered. If I have some extra time, I'd also like to drop into the science department. Are you talking about that present of yours? Millie questioned. What present is that? Rivals asked in confusion. Professor Asplund said that I should ask him if there was something special that I wanted. Nina answered with a small blush on her face. You mean Lloyd? Rivals exclaimed. That philandering playboy. That's enough. Millie lightly chastised. Could you get a little work done? Easy for you to say, more than half the council's missing. Rivals stated. Suzaku, Gino, Anya, and Monica are all in the army, both Colin and Rai are in the hospital, and Lelouch is completely Mia. He looked to the only other member in the room. Hey Shirley, anything going on with him? I saw that you and Lelouch have been spending a lot of time together lately. Shirley was somewhat surprised by that. Oh, well, he had something personal he had to take care of with Nunnally. A family emergency and all that. She sent a glance towards Millie, which she seemed to understand. Ah well, guess it can't be helped then. Millie played along. Rivals sighed. Yeah, well I still think something weird is going on. Shirley inwardly winced as she didn't like the idea of deceiving her friends like this, but she knew it was for their own protection. Of course, it wasn't just that, as she remembered when Rai confessed to Nunnally the previous day. Flashback. Yesterday. Rai had kneeled down in front of Nunnally, holding his hand over hers as he had told her everything about his past, that he was her half-brother, as well as Suzaku's cousin, how he got his Geass, what happened to his mother and sister, as well as Vivi putting him in the thought elevator only to be extracted by Clovis 7 years ago. Lelouch, CC, Colin, Shirley, and Sayoko were all present in the room as well. Though Lelouch, Colin, and Shirley were already aware, it didn't stop them from looking to Rai in complete and utter sympathy. However, it was the first time both CC and Sayoko had heard of this. The ninja maid covered her mouth in shock, and even CC had been completely stunned. Though she felt a great deal of pity for Rai, her resentment towards Vivi had increased substantially. Rai, I'm so sorry, Nunnally said to him, her voice already cracking. Hard to believe huh? Rai asked with a hollow voice. Your mysterious roommate is not only your half-brother, but also a mass murderer. Rai, no, that was not your fault. Nunnally told him. And I'm not going to let you think that about yourself. I know, Lelouch and the others already told me that it's just. Rai looked away. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get over that. But, at least you're not alone. Nunnally reached out to caress his cheek, causing him to slowly look up in surprise at the sight of her smile, despite the tears that streamed down her cheeks. Rai, I am so sorry all of that happened to you, but I don't think of you any differently. I've always cared about you ever since you came here, and now you're my brother. I know I can never replace Arena, but you have a sister now who loves you deeply and wants to be here for you. So please let me. Rai stifled some tears as he smiled as well. Thank you, Nunnally. She didn't hesitate to pull her brother into an embrace, which he was more than happy to return. Such a scene caused Shirley to shed some tears of joy, even Sayoko wiped a tear from her own eye. Cece didn't cry, but she nonetheless smiled and gave a small nod. Even Lelouch and Colin shared genuine smiles with one another. End flashback. The Ark. Rai, clad in his black knight uniform, had recalled that memory of the previous day as he sat in a cargo hold on a few boxes next to the jackhammer as he saw a familiar white Autobot walk in. "Hey, how you holding up, kid?" Wheeljack asked. "Hanging in there," Rai said with a small sigh. "So, Bulkhead told you everything?" "Yeah," Wheeljack nodded. "Listen, Rai, I'm sorry for all that." "Thanks, but it's not like you got a reason to be," Rai said. "None of that is your fault." "No, but you're still my friend," Wheeljack said as he kneeled down closer to Ray's level. "Kid, look, I'm not exactly good at these heartfelt speeches or whatever, but I just wanna say that no matter what kind of baggage you got going on, you're still one of us, and I always got your back." Rai looked up to Wheeljack with a genuine smile as the Autobot soon smirked. "And hey, if that VV guy shows up to give you a hard time again, just let me know. I'll test that fancy immortality of his, Wrecker style." He smirked as he held out a grenade for emphasis. Rai chuckled. "Yeah, thanks Wheeljack. Don't mention it, kid." The Wrecker nodded as he offered his fist for a fist bump, which Rai was happy to return. Meanwhile, Lelouch, still in his Zero outfit, sat in the living room area of the Ark's bridge with Optimus behind him as Toto, Kagaya, and Geass sat down across from him. "You wanted to see us?" Toto asked. "We would like each of your opinions on Sawazaki," Optimus requested. "Given the situation, we need to be certain whether or not we can count him as our ally. And given you three were among those who worked closest with him, anything you would say would be valuable." "Sawazaki is a coward, plain and simple," Geass said immediately. Though he supported the fight against Britannia when they invaded, once word got out of Prime Minister Kururugi's death, he immediately fled the country with his tail between his legs. He didn't even give a warning. Even before he fled the country, Sawazaki was never a warrior. Toto added. "He's essentially a typical politician, all bark and no bite. My guess is that he's a pawn for the Chinese Federation." "Oh yes, most definitely." Even Kagaya nodded. "I'm friends with their current empress, and I can safely say that the high eunuchs are using him to try and get Japan all to themselves. They're not really all that different from the Britannian royal family, no offense Lelouch." "None taken," Lelouch assured. "From the sound of things, it seems like Sawazaki isn't all that different from Starscream. Then again, at least even he can put up a fight if he's cornered, but for Sawazaki in that circumstance, he shows his underbelly." "Is that right? Couldn't have put it any better myself," Toto confirmed. Lelouch then felt a vibration on his person and took out his cell phone to see it was a private line, one that he recognized almost instantly. "Excuse me, I have to take this." He stood up. "Optimus, gather everyone to the bridge, we'll announce our next move soon." "Understood." Optimus nodded as Lelouch left the area. The young revolutionary entered his private quarters as he sat down and answered the phone. "Hello Yuffie." "Lelouch, I'm sorry to call you if you're in the middle of something, but I have to talk to you." He noticed the tone in his sister's voice and could tell it was urgent. "What's going on?" "Suzaku resigned as my knight," Euphemia informed. "What?" Lelouch practically shot out from his seat. "Lelouch did you know about his father?" Yuffie asked, causing Lelouch to wince. "Yes, I did," Lelouch answered with a sigh. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." "Does Optimus know?" Yuffie asked. "Yes, as do the other Autobots in my inner circle of Black Knights," Lelouch answered. "But how did you find out?" "He told me, he said that was the reason he wanted to resign," Yuffie replied. "That, and he said he put people that he cared about in danger." "Did he say who specifically?" Lelouch asked. "No," Yuffie responded. "Do you know where Suzaku is now?" Lelouch continued to ask. "He's involved in the operation with Kyushu," Yuffie replied. "Lelouch, you and Optimus wouldn't happen to. If you're wondering if we're involved with Sawazaki, let me tell you right now that we're not." Lelouch set the record straight. "We had no idea this was coming, and we have no intention of siding with Sawazaki either. I had a feeling, but I just wanted to be sure." Euphemia replied and paused for a moment before speaking again. Lelouch. Yes. I tried to talk with Cornelia and Schneisel about what I learned from you and Optimus," Yuffie said, causing Lelouch to look in minor surprise. Did you tell them my identity? He asked somewhat urgently. No, I wouldn't do that without your consent, Euphemia quickly assured, much to Lelouch's relief. But, when I tried to tell them about the Decepticons, Cornelia ignored me completely, and Schneisel is more focused on what's going on in Kyushu. I'm sorry, I wanted to get you and Optimus help but... It's alright, Lelouch assured. I thank you for wanting to help, but we have to be careful. It's not just the Decepticons, you know what our father is like, and what he's capable of. I know, but it's just so frustrating. Euphemia voiced her thoughts. I want to help but, I can't, you have no idea how much that hurts, knowing the people I care about are struggling so much but I can't do a thing to help them. Lelouch winced with sympathy as he heard his half-sister's grievances. I'm sorry Euphi, really I am. But, there's a time and place that you can help, but now is not that time. Please don't take any offense to this, but you're not a soldier, you don't know what war's like. The best thing I can recommend is for you to keep your head down. If something comes up and you can help us, I'll let you know, I promise. But right now, just keep yourself out of harm's way. Somehow, Lelouch could practically see the disappointed look on his sister's face. As much as he wanted to help Euphi, he knew that she didn't have much to contribute right now to the current situation. Euphi, are you still there? He asked when he didn't hear a response. Yes, she replied. Lelouch, there's just one last thing, Clovis, why did he do what he did? He finished for her. Why did I kill him? Yes, Lelouch sighed. I meant to tell you this sooner, but I never got the chance. Euphi, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What I am about to tell you right now, you can't tell anybody else. Not a single soul, do you understand? Though there was some hesitance, he did get a response. I understand. Lelouch then told her everything about his Geass, from meeting Cece in Shinjuku, to explaining why that was the reason Clovis ordered the massacre, and also the reason Lelouch killed him. He also explained his Geass power, and even went into details about their secret uncle, VV, and even talked about Ryan his past. Euphemia listened to every word and asked the occasional question, which Lelouch was willing to answer. He even talked about how he met with Cornelia before and used his Geass on her to get information regarding his mother's murder, and even erased her memories of that meeting, if only to protect her. He also told her about his confession to Nunnally and his plan to move her to the Ark soon. Once it was all done, Lelouch sat in uncomfortable silence, waiting for his sister's response. Finally, after what seemed like a long while, she finally spoke. Wow, I really have no idea what to say to all that. I know, it's a lot. Lelouch said. And I'm sorry to pour it all on you at once. Well, given all the bombshells I got on that island with you and Optimus, you'd think I'd be used to it. She attempted to make a joke, which caused Lelouch to chuckle slightly. Lelouch, I'm sorry, you had to go through all that all by yourself. I'm not by myself, Lelouch replied. I've got Optimus and so many other people and bots who are willing to help me. So, don't worry, I'm not alone. Listen, I have to go. I promise I'm going to help Suzaku, and we'll get this matter with Sawazaki taken care of as well. I know you will. Please give Optimus my regards. Euphi said. I will, Lelouch said as he stood up. And Euphi, I love you. I love you too, she told her brother before he hung up. The Avalon. Suzaku saw that the Lancelot now had its float system attached to it, which took the form of a red jetpack-like device attached to the back of the White Nightmare. However, before he could contemplate, he received a communication from his earpiece. Suzaku Kururugi. To say the honorary Britannian was surprised was an understatement as he recognized that voice. Dreadwing. Wah, where are you? Currently flying outside the Avalon. Dreadwing answered. I already informed Asplund and the Knights of the Round. Did Megatron send you? Suzaku's eyes narrowed slightly. No, I came here out of Princess Euphemia's request. Dreadwing responded, catching Suzaku off guard. She told me of your resignation as her knight. This wouldn't happen to do with the situation around your father, would it? Suzaku's eyes widened in shock as he quickly made his way around the corner to speak in private. Dreadwing, what exactly? Answer the question, did you resign your post because of your guilt in your father's death? Dreadwing persisted. Suzaku hesitated for a moment before he delivered an answer. I'm not worth to be a knight to someone as amazing as her. All I've done is run away. I put many people in danger, some of those people I care deeply about. A person like me doesn't deserve to serve someone like her. Meanwhile, Dreadwing's jet mode flew above the Avalon as he continued his conversation with the young soldier. Kururugi, I am not here to pass judgment based on your past actions. But I will say this, what that girl, Kallen Kazuki, said on the island is true. A soldier must be willing to accept responsibility for all the deeds they've committed, both good and bad. You are not the only soldier who's made mistakes, I've made plenty, as have several others. I can't afford a mistake though. Suzaku tried to protest, otherwise, everything I work for, it's all for nothing. Suzaku, listen to me. Dreadwing spoke to him. You are not perfect, nobody is perfect. Do you know why it's so important to know when you've made a mistake or accept responsibility? So that you can learn from all of it and attempt to improve yourself. But that's the thing, Dreadwing, I don't know if I can. Suzaku confessed honestly. I don't know if I can accept all that. If I do, I would only bring dishonor, and I can't afford that, especially with Princess Euphemia. If I do, I worry she might end up hating herself. If she hates herself, it's only because she feels that she was the one who pushed you away. Dreadwing replied. She cares deeply for you, don't push her away. If something happened to her, you would never forgive yourself. Trust me, I know. There was no response from Suzaku at first, but Dreadwing heard something of a small sigh before he gave his reply. Thanks for telling me that and for being here too. You're a good friend, Dreadwing. He then hung up, leaving Dreadwing alone to contemplate his thoughts as she continued to fly alongside the Avalon. It's not just that he won't accept responsibility. Dreadwing thought to himself. He refuses to forgive himself. Suzaku Kururugi, what does it have to take for you to accept help from people who genuinely care for you? Yuffie stood alone, save for her bodyguards, in the art museum as she looked at the picture of her late half-brother Clovis. Though after hearing what he did from Lelouch, she could never look at the image of Clovis the same way again. A figurehead, that's all I was from the start. I knew that, but I thought if I could give my best effort, maybe I could make some difference. But who am I kidding? I'm not a strategist like Lelouch or Schneisel, and I'm not a warrior like Optimus, Cornelia, or Dreadwing. I'm useless. The people that I care about are risking everything, yet all I can do is stick the sidelines and offer my regards. Tears built up in her eyes as she tried to wipe them from her face. I hate myself. Nina stood at the entrance to the museum as she addressed a guard present at the door. Oh yeah, they told me about you. You need to get the document signed today, right? But a member of the royal family is viewing the art, right now. Huh, which member is it? Nina asked. Zero stood on the catwalk on the Ark's bridge, alongside Optimus Prime and Ironhide, as well as Ogi, Toto, Kagaya, and even Diethard as they addressed all the Black Knights and the rest of the Autobots that had gathered together on the bridge. Even Colin, Shirley, and Rai were present, standing right by Bumblebee. So, what are we gonna do? Cliffjumper asked. We will not be working with Sawazaki. Optimus answered. He is not a supporter for Japan, but a pawn of the high eunuchs of the Chinese Federation. But he said he was fighting for Japan. Bulkhead said. He didn't even call it, Area 11 Feet. This country might get a new name, but nothing would change. Zero stated. We would just be trading Britannia for another master. Japan wouldn't be truly free. Alright, so what are we going to do? RC asked. We're going to remove the Chinese Federation forces from Kyushu. Optimus answered. So, what we're actually gonna help Britannia? Asahina questioned. What about the Decepticons? Urabe also questioned. We don't think Megatron will involve himself in this. Ironhide answered. As far as he's concerned, this is just a little squabble and nothing to trouble himself over. Zero, Optimus, perhaps you should clarify what our overall mission is. Diethard suggested. Yeah, he's right. Ogi agreed. Even leaving aside the Sawazaki matter, what's our midterm goal on this? There's a lot of moving parts, but there are three main objectives. Zero began. Step 1. To make Japan an independent nation. That took nearly everyone by surprise. Independent. Colin exclaimed as she shared a surprised expression with Ryan Shirley. Did he just say what I thought he said? Cliffjumper questioned as he looked to the equally stunned RC, as all the other Black Knights began to voice their surprise and concern aloud. He wants us to be in a country. Bulkhead questioned. Wheeljack gave a chuckle. Well, what do you expect? We gotta go somewhere with all of this. Hold on a moment. Ratchet spoke up. It is true that our forces have increased substantially, but we still remain at a disadvantage in regard to the sheer number of enemies. That's right, Britannia is an empire that controls 1/3 of the world. Chiba stated. Not to mention the sheer firepower the Decepticons have over us. Fix-It also voiced his concern. There's no way we can pull something like that off. Tamaki exclaimed. Which brings us to our second step. Optimus began. Yes, making Japan an independent country will be a difficult task, but not impossible. I have every reason to believe that with the resources we currently possess, we will be able to drive out both the Decepticon and Britannian forces from Japan. However, as you say, they will attempt to retaliate. In which case, our response, the second step of our plan, is to build a coalition of nations. Zero continued, causing everyone to look in further surprise. We will recruit other countries to our cause, not just smaller countries like Japan, but even other Britannian-occupied areas, as well as the remaining superpowers including the EU and the Chinese Federation. Wait a second, you guys literally just said that Sawazaki, Ogi said. Sawazaki is a puppet of the Chinese Federation. Zero began to clarify. What we're talking about is building an army where we and those in the Federation stand as equals. Once we've established this force, this, United Nations, if you will, we will have the means to stop both the Decepticons and Britannia once and for all, ending this war entirely. Optimus continued. Which is our third step, to create a new world where all countries, all people of the earth, regardless of gender, nationality, ideology, all stand as equals. No more persecution, segregation, or assimilation. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings, and it is our duty to protect and reinstitute that right to this world. Every single Autobot and Black Knight present looked towards each other with surprise, or excitement, or fanatical ecstasy in the case of Diethard. The true objective of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance was revealed, to bring freedom to this world. And from the words and convictions of both Zero and Optimus Prime, they were going to reach their goal no matter what. Euphemia rode in her personal car out the back parking lot of the museum, when suddenly Nina tried to run up toward the gate. Princess Euphemia. The guards however quickly restrained Nina as the car came to a stop just outside the gate. Secure the perimeter. Code Delta. Code Delta. A guard stated as they kept the tearful Nina pinned to the ground. Please. I just want to thank Princess Euphemia, Nina cried, but it didn't seem they were listening to her. Yuffie sat in the back of the car, momentarily stunned. However, her eyes widened in surprise as she recognized this girl. From the hotel, without a moment's hesitation, Euphemia stepped out of the car. Stop it, she ordered the guards. That girl is a personal friend of mine. Good, it's cleared up. Cornelia observed as the storm finally passed. Now we can resume the landing operation. Guilford reported. And we'll try to put Prince Schneisel's plan into action. Also, Viceroy, it would seem Dreadwing has joined them. Dreadwing. Cornelia turned to her knight in minor surprise. Are the Decepticons becoming involved? No ma'am. Guilford answered. Based on Sir Weinberg's report, it seems Dreadwing is acting on his own. And in my personal opinion, between him, the Knights of the Round, and Kururugi, I have little doubt they will succeed. Cornelia gave something of a scoff. Hopefully Dreadwing and the Knights can compensate for Kururugi's recent lack of results. Dreadwing stood on top of the Avalon as he waited for the operation to begin, until he got a call on his comms. Dreadwing, where are you? Megatron contacted him. Providing my assistance in this operation, Lord Megatron. Dreadwing responded. Did I not order you to stand down? Megatron questioned irritably as he and Soundwave stood on the bridge of the Nemesis. Forgive me, one true master, but I believe that by working alongside the Britannian forces, we will be able to at least begin remedying the strained relationship between our forces. Dreadwing explained. You yourself admitted that this is the main reason our enemies continue to succeed. While this is indeed true, Britannia is not one to let go of their pride. Megatron stated. I believe I may have the means to change that, Lord Megatron. Dreadwing said. I assure you, that between myself, and the Britannian forces currently with me, we will put an end to this occupation swiftly. I will allow it, Dreadwing, but only this once. Megatron said before hanging up on communications. Megatron then turned to Soundwave. You wonder why I allow this, even though it can be considered insubordination. Soundwave nodded in confirmation. Call it curiosity, but as you already know, we have someone in place who should get this done rather swiftly. That is, of course, he doesn't attempt to throw his life away. That, and of course I'm curious as to how Optimus and Lelouch would respond to this. Incoming missiles. Alarms sounded on the Avalon's bridge. Launch point appears to be Fukuoka base. 1 minute, 5 seconds to impact. Not bad, they're well prepared against air raids as well. Lloyd said, not really intimidated by the incoming attack. Meanwhile, Suzaku, and the 4 knights of the round were already stationed in their respective nightmares, each one with a specially designed float system to enable flight. Are we sending up a barrage? Suzaku asked. We'll be fine in this position. Cecile told him as he felt the entire ship rock. Even Gino, Moniz, Nonette, and Anya were jolted slightly as they felt the impact of the missiles striking something just outside the ship. Direct hit confirmed. One soldier reported. The Avalon is destroyed. Sawazaki had a triumphant smirk on his face. Even if it is state-of-the-art, a single ship can't possibly hurt us. However, he looked in surprise on the radar screen to see that the ship was still heading toward their location, as if it was never destroyed to begin with. What the? Dreadwing looked impressed as he saw the shields dissipate from the lower area of the Avalon's hull. They converted the Lancelot's Blaze luminous shield into a defense mechanism for aircraft. Clever. He smirked. Attention all units, I am laying out the mission plan for final verification. Cecile contacted Dreadwing, as well as Suzaku and the Knights of the Round. This ship will breach the enemy's front line from high altitude and move directly to the launch point. Once you've reached the point, you will divide into 3 teams to divide enemy forces. Dreadwing and Major Kururugi will attack the base directly, while Sir Weinberg and Lady Khrushchevsky will attack from the west side, as Lady Enneagram and Lady Alstrheim will attack from the east. From there, all 3 teams will converge and neutralize the target. The float unit consumes energy fast, so all Nightmare pilots, pay attention to your operation time. Yes. Suzaku responded. You got it. Gino confirmed. Acknowledged. Anya replied. Roger. Nonette confirmed. Understood. Monica responded. Dreadwing walked toward the edge of the top of the Avalon, where he saw the Lancelot primed and ready at the launch bay, with the other 4 Nightmares likely behind it even though they couldn't quite see. All units, launch. Cecile ordered. With that, Dreadwing transformed and flew outward, alongside the Lancelot as it was launched from the Avalon's ramp. The 2 flew together, taking point as the Tristian, Florence, Mordred, and Galatian, each launched from the same ramp in that order and followed closely behind the pair. Despite taking the form of a human-made jet, Dreadwing was still able to keep up with the 5 Nightmares and their respective float systems, even the hulking Mordred flew at the same level of speed. The enemy ship appears to have launched a series of bombers. A soldier of the Chinese Federation reported as Sawazaki and General Cao saw 6 incoming dots on the radar screen. But they're moving faster than fighter planes. I have picture. Footage of the 5 incoming Nightmares, as well as the Decepticon in vehicle mode, were brought up to the main screen. Nightmares. Sawazaki looked in surprise and awe. They're not being transported, they're just flying on their own. Cao observed. But, how is that fighter jet keeping up with them? No man-made airplane can fly that fast. Unless it's not a man-made aircraft, Sawazaki looked in realization. It's one of those transforming robots. But these other Nightmares, Cao began. I recognize 4 of them, they're the personal weapons of the Knights of the Round currently in Area 11, but this other one, could it be that novelty weapon? The Lancelot, I think. But then, the pilot is. Incoming aircraft. Anya reported stoically. Radar indicates a total of 30 units. That's 5 for each of us. Gino smiled. Let's go. Incoming missiles. Monica voiced in alarm as the incoming enemy aircraft launched a barrage of missiles. However, Dreadwing shot even faster as he fired not only a series of his own missiles but even shot his vehicle mode's rapid-fire bullets. He was able to effectively hit each of the missiles, causing them all to explode and create a makeshift smokescreen to blind the enemy units. Dreadwing was able to soar through the smoke cloud first as he transformed and drew his blade to slice one aircraft in half before drawing his cannon as he fell and opened fire to blast two from below before transforming again into his jet mode to fly behind two enemy units and shoot them down with little resistance. Show off. Gino smirked as he got to work as well as the Tristian launched its arm-mounted Harkins to destroy two aircraft at once before drawing its dual MVS blades to get in close and slice down three more in seconds. The Mordred backed him up as Anya provided cover fire with the shoulder-mounted Varus weapons. Anya was able to scare direct hits and destroy 5 aircraft in no time at all. Monica shot her Florence forward, while also firing her Harkins to take out 2 aircraft before activating her MVS claws and getting in close to slice up 1 aircraft, before doing the same with the 2 closest to her. Nonette flew alongside her in the Galician, which was equipped with its own Varus rifle, which she shot and destroyed 2 aircraft, while also launching a wrist-mounted Harkin and swung it to slice up 3 aircraft simultaneously. Suzaku followed suit as he twirled around with the Lancelot, using its Harkins to move in quick and disable the remaining 5 aircraft by specifically targeting their wings, and avoiding fatally harming the pilots as he saw them eject to safety. Target dead ahead, Nonette reported as the group of 6 spotted Fukuoka base. This is where we split up. Anya and I will take the east side, Gino and Monica take the west side, Suzaku and Dreadwing punch right down the middle. Understood. Dreadwing acknowledged. See you on the other side, Gino said as the team split off into 3 groups of 2, with the Lancelot and Dreadwing's vehicle mode gunning straight towards the enemy-occupied base. Suzaku looked in surprise as his nightmare was receiving a transmission. Dreadwing, I'm getting a communication from the enemy base. I'm patching in. Dreadwing responded. Answer it if you wish. Suzaku did answer the incoming communication and saw the face of Sawazaki on his screen. This is Minister Sawazaki, is that Prime Minister Kururugi's son in the pilot seat? Suzaku's eyes narrowed. I see, I didn't know he had a son like you. Meanwhile, Euphemia had brought Nina to her own private chambers in the royal palace as the two sat by a fireplace with some tea. Nina was wearing some of Yuffie's casual clothes that she had provided for her. And then, when you saved me Princess Euphemia, I'll never forget it. Nina continued. You looked like some kind of goddess, like you were bathed in radiant light. Oh, forgive me, I should have thanked you for this change of clothes you gave me. Oh, don't worry about that, Nina. Euphemia assured. Besides, I'm not all the wonderful person you think I am. I'm no good compared to the rest of my siblings. She confessed while also looking away. No, that's not true. Nina exclaimed, surprising Euphemia. How can you say that about yourself? She questioned before looking down. There's not one good thing about me, really nothing at all. My parents are ordinary, I'm not the least bit pretty, and there's just nothing special about me. Not to mention, all those giant transforming robots on the news, it's really scary. That's wrong, Nina, I think you're a very cute girl. Euphemia complimented, causing Nina to blush slightly. And besides, some of those transformers, if you will, are actually really good. There are some that are kinda scary, yes. But I've also met some who are actually quite kind and gentle. Oh no, Nina continued. I'm not really good for anything, not at all. Euphemia looked to her in sympathy. She hates herself, but, so do I. It's not just those robots, Suzaku also makes me feel uneasy as well. Nina confessed. This caused Yuffie to look as though she had an epiphany. That's it. Suzaku feels badly too. So please, don't say that you're no good Princess Euphemia. I beg of you, Nina pleaded. Because, I need you, I need your goodness. Euphemia looked to Nina with a genuine and grateful smile. Thank you so much, Nina. I'm glad I got to know you. The bespectacled girl looked up in surprise. You've really helped me understand. Fukuoka base. This has nothing to do with my father. Suzaku stated as the Lancelot was about to land at the base, with Dreadwing flying in behind him. We came here to put an end to this fighting. I will accept your surrender. You want to rob Japan of its dream of freedom? Sawazaki questioned. Though Dreadwing was listening as well, he chose not to speak. The Lancelot had landed successfully on the ground as Dreadwing continued to hover in his vehicle mode above the Lancelot and keep an eye out for enemy advances. Freedom has to come the right way. Not like this, Suzaku argued. You act out of selfishness. It's justice without ideology. Sawazaki argued back. No, you're wrong. Suzaku tried to come up with a response. Suzaku, behind you. Dreadwing attempted to warn him, but it was too late as the Lancelot was blasted in the back, causing the Lancelot to lose its Varus before it was gunned down. Of course, it wasn't just him. Dreadwing was struck in the wings by unknown projectiles, causing him to derail and crash onto the ground, causing him to skid before he transformed. He was distracting Suzaku. Why didn't I see that? Dreadwing cursed himself as he pulled himself up to stand alongside the Lancelot as they were surrounded by a multitude of odd-looking nightmares. They weren't humanoid like those among Britannia and the Black Knights, but only had land spinners built into the legs with guns mounted on the cockpits. Are these Chinese Federation nightmares? Dreadwing questioned as he drew his cannon and retaliated with energon blasts to take down several of the frontmost units. Yes, Suzaku answered as the Lancelot tried to provide cover with its blaze-luminous shields. They're called gun rus. Hey, we're down, Gino reported in as a grunt and crash was heard over the radio, much to his and Dreadwing's shock. Anya and I are surrounded. Our float systems are destroyed. Nonet exclaimed. What? Suzaku exclaimed as even Dreadwing looked in surprise. From the eastern side of the base, the Florence and Tristian each had to discard the smoking remains of their float systems as they were surrounded by at least 24 gun rus. At the same time, there was a similar situation on the western side, as the Galician came back to back with the Mordred, both on the ground and completely surrounded by the same number of gun rus units. First Kururugi allowed me to distract him, then he and his friends split off. Sawazaki smirked. They could have easily taken this base had they stayed together. However, thanks to that show at Area 11's prison complex, we saw that even the Knights of the Round aren't invincible. It was a good thing the High Eunuchs saw to it we received those anti-aircraft turrets. General Sao said. They're stationed all over this building with precise targeting systems, intended to be used for aerial vehicles if we ever saw those flying transformers, but who would have suspected we'd see flying nightmares? Suffice to say, we have found Britannia's Achilles heel. Sawazaki said triumphantly. Euphemia had suddenly entered Schneisel's office, much to his surprise, as well as that of Darlton. Euphi. Schneisel, may I have access to a private communication line? She requested. Suzaku used the Lancelot's shields to provide cover as he and Dreadwing hid in between two warehouses, the later using his energon cannon to open fire and take down 4 or 5 gun rus, but he was shot in the shoulder and forced to retreat behind cover. Dreadwing. Suzaku tried to keep him covered as the Lancelot drew its MVS. I'm alright, Dreadwing assured as he stood up and tried to make contact with the others. Enneagram, Weinberg, Alstrheim, Kruszewski, report. We're surrounded and taking fire from all sides. Nonet exclaimed as her Galician held an MVS blade to try and slice at any gun rus that got too close, but they pulled back and kept their distance to shoot and fire at her, as well as the Mordred, who tried to retaliate with its built-in Varus weapons, but a few gun rus dropped a series of smoke bombs to blind the Mordred before they fired and skimmed its hide. Though Anya was able to protect her nightmare, with its own built-in shields, the Mordred did take some damage as both it and the Galician were unable to find cover. The Chinese Federation has likely seen our fight against the Autobots and Black Knights during their operation to rescue Kiyoshiro Toto. Anya said, still as emotionless as ever. So, they've adapted similar tactics to outmaneuver us. So, you're saying they know our weaknesses? Gino questioned as the Tristian tried to move in and cut down some gun rus. That's totally unfair, he grunted however as the Tristian was shot in the back. Though the Florence quickly moved in to try and cut them down with its MVS claws, it was shot along the side, causing Monica to wince as the Florence and Tristian fell back to find some cover. They were expecting us. This was an ambush, Dreadwing exclaimed to Suzaku who grunted in frustration. That's not all, Suzaku grimaced as he saw his energy readings dropping rapidly. My energy filler is dropping fast. Are you kidding? All their floats were blasted off. Lloyd exclaimed. The Avalon has to strike as the base. Cecile stated. No, the shield doesn't completely surround us. One direct hit and we'll go down in flames. Lloyd panicked as he held his hair. Suzaku, reroute all power to combat and comm systems. Cecile told him. The Knights of the Round are completely surrounded. I'll try and help them, but it might be up to you and Dreadwing now. Got it. Suzaku did as instructed as he routed all available power in order to save what little he had left. Dreadwing, get out of here. I'll draw their fire. No. Dreadwing stated as he drew his sword. I will fight by your side. Besides, the entire base is surrounded by special anti-aircraft turrets. I would not be able to escape if I wanted to. I will fight with you to the end, Suzaku Kururugi. He gave a small smile. Suzaku, though grateful, also felt a twinge of guilt as he could consider Dreadwing a friend, and the last thing he wanted was to put another friend in danger. You had better surrender, Suzaku. Sawazaki contacted him. Your transforming friend, as well as the Knights of the Round have no chance at surviving. However, given that you are Prime Minister Kururugi's son, I guarantee that you'll be very well treated, my boy. I decline, Suzaku said immediately. I'll never abandon my friends, and if I used my father's name for this, I'd never forgive myself. This is between you and me, leave the Knights of the Round out of this. Seeing how he has the advantage, Suzaku, it is highly unlikely he will. Dreadwing told him. Your mechanical friend is indeed correct, Suzaku. Sawazaki confirmed. I have 4 of Britannia's elite pilots right in my grasp. There is no way I'd ever let such a golden opportunity slip through my fingers. You wear us down with sheer numbers as opposed to direct confrontation. Dreadwing scowled, speaking to Sawazaki directly. You are no warrior, and you have no honor. There is no such thing as honor when it comes to war and victory, alien. Sawazaki replied. Strategy and opportunity are keys to obtaining victory. Anyone who says otherwise is either foolish or deceitful. Dreadwing scowled even further. At the very least the Autobots and some of the Black Knights had a code of honor that he could respect. But this human clearly had none at all. He looked out past the cover to see there was practically a small army of gun rusts that almost looked like 100 total, not to mention all the anti-aircraft turrets on the base itself, and several tanks and other armored vehicles behind the gun rusts. It looked like an impossible situation, and he had no chance to plant any of his bombs. Suzaku Kururugi. Both he and Dreadwing were surprised to see that Euphemia had made contact with the Lancelot, and Dreadwing was able to hear it as well as he was still patched into the Lancelot's communications. Princess Euphemia. Both exclaimed at the same time. Dreadwing, you're with Suzaku? Euphemia asked in surprise, not expecting to get in contact with him too, but was nonetheless glad she did. I am, but I cannot talk right now. Dreadwing stated as he and the Lancelot dove out from cover and charged directly into the enemy forces. Suzaku, Euphemia tried to speak to him. The truth is, you and I, she stuttered at first before she steeled herself and spoke to him with a firm expression. I hereby command you to love me. Right. Suzaku responded, only for his eyes to widen in surprise as he only just now realized what she had just said to him. Even Dreadwing was caught off guard. Cecile gave a gasp in surprise. What is it? Lloyd asked in a panic upon seeing her surprised expression. Sorry, this is private, Cecile flustered as she tried to take off her earpiece. And in return, I will love you, forever. Euphemia continued as both Suzaku and Dreadwing listened in surprise, while also fighting. Dreadwing used his sword to rush and cut down 3 gun rusts with a single slice before giving a kick to crush a 4th from behind. Princess Euphemia, Suzaku almost couldn't believe what he was hearing as the Lancelot used a blaze luminous as a shield in his Nightmare's left arm, with the MVS sword in the right hand to cut off the guns off 3 gun rusts that he rushed and passed. Suzaku, I love your stubbornness, and your kindness, and your strength, your sad eyes, your clumsiness, and the way you have trouble with cats. I love everything about you. So please, don't hate yourself. Euphemia confessed. Dreadwing had sliced another gun run in half before quickly attaching one of his bombs onto another and kicking it into a group of 4 gun rusts before all of them exploded. A part of him felt awkward and ashamed to listen to such a heart-warming moment that he felt should be shared with the two of them, yet at the same time, he was glad for this as he could tell Yuffie cared deeply for Suzaku and he cared for her just as much. Forgive me Euphemia, for listening to this. Dreadwing said as he covered the Lancelot that used its /Harken to take down a gun rust at point blank. It was not my intent to eavesdrop, I assure you. No, I'm grateful, Dreadwing. So grateful that you looked after Suzaku for me. You are a good and strong warrior and I'm glad I got to know you. Euphemia assured. Suzaku had a smile as he and Dreadwing still continued to fight off the enemy, the Lancelot and Seeker coming back to cut down the gun rust that surrounded and tried to gun them down with their respective swords. I see that I've made you even more worried than I did before. You really are, he continued as the Lancelot hopped over Dreadwing to fire a slash harken and knock down a gun rust, while Dreadwing impaled his sword in the opposite direction to destroy another enemy unit. Everything you do is impulsive. When we first met, when you told me you were a princess, when you selected my school, when you made me a knight, always. Yes, they were all sudden. Euphemia said with a smile. That's because, I suddenly realized. But then, it's that spur of the moment feeling that's opened so many doors for me. Suzaku said as he and Dreadwing made their way closer to the base. What are you doing? Sawazaki exclaimed in a panic. Stop them now. Princess, can I make one final request? Suzaku asked. Final. Euphemia exclaimed as even Dreadwing looked with concern. Please, transfer this to a separate line, one that nobody else can hear, not even Megatron. Suzaku instructed. I'm sorry, Dreadwing, but I can't have Megatron know about this. Though concerned, Dreadwing nodded in understanding as they continued to make their way closer to the base, despite the seemingly endless enemy forces gathering to try and stop to them. All right, we're on a secure line. Euphemia said. Good, listen Yuffie. Suzaku began. Your brother and sister, Lelouch and Nunnally, they're alive. Both Dreadwing and Euphemia were surprised by this revelation. They're both staying at Ashford Academy and being well taken care of. But, Megatron knows about them too. Euphemia gave an audible gasp at this revelation, even Dreadwing was surprised. What? Please, as soon as you possibly can, find them and get them to a safe place. Suzaku continued. Megatron said he'd reveal them to your father if I disobeyed another one of his orders. But, I can't protect them anymore. He said as both the Lancelot and Dreadwing were completely surrounded with no way to escape. But when you see them, don't tell them what happened to me. Just tell them I transferred schools or make up some story, I don't want them to be sad. Suzaku, don't tell me Yuffie had a sinking feeling that she knew what was about to happen. Yes, the nightmare's out of energy. Suzaku reported as it lowered its arms, only having reserve power left, which wasn't much. Dreadwing stood closer to him, tightening his grip on his sword. Dreadwing, I'm sorry, Don't you dare apologize, Suzaku. Dreadwing stated. This was my choice, and I hold no regret. If I am truly to become one with the Allspark this day, I am glad that I did so while fighting beside you. What Euphemia said was correct. You may be far from perfect, and you've made many mistakes, but you are a true warrior and a good individual, one I have been honored to know, brother. Suzaku did not expect Dreadwing to call him that, but he was also strangely happy about it as he shed some tears of joy with a smile on his face. Princess Euphemia, thank you as well. Dreadwing gave some final remarks to her also. You are noble and caring individual. Live your life to the fullest and take care of the people you love. Yuffie, Suzaku had to give his own remark as well. Thank you, for everything. Tell the others goodbye as well. He gave something of an accepting sigh. I was stubborn all the way to the end. Euphemia could not believe what was about to happen. She was about to lose not only a close friend, but also the one she loved. No, this could not happen. Don't die Suzaku. Dreadwing, you both have to live. Suzaku's eye widened as a red ring flashed around his pupils. Wah, what the? Suddenly, a ground bridge portal opened in front of the Lancelot and Dreadwing as the vehicle modes of Optimus and Bumblebee shot out, followed by the Gawain. Optimus, truck mode swerved as it used its trailer end to trip and knock down at least a dozen gun rusts at once before he transformed and opened fire with an ion blaster in his right hand to obliterate 6 gun rusts with precise shots. Bumblebee likewise shot his vehicle mode past Optimus and toward 4 gun rusts that tried to shoot the Autobot leader from behind, but Bumblebee was quick to transform and crush one of them with a single punch before activating his Energon blasters to destroy the one in front and the 2 behind. The Autobots. Dreadwing did not expect to see them here. And as that, the same nightmare from before. He recognized the Gawain from Kaname Island as well. Unlike before, however, the Gawain had the metallic emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance etched onto its chest. Huh, looks like the Decepticons decided to show up after all. Obi voiced in minor surprise as he sat in the co-pilot seat of the Gawain underneath the unmasked Lelouch. It seems to be just Dreadwing, Lelouch observed. His own sense of honor must have outweighed whatever orders Megatron have him. At the same time, another ground bridge portal opened up on the west side of the base, above the surrounded Tristian and Florence. Out of the swirling vortex shot the vehicle modes of RC and Cliffjumper, along with the Gurren Mk2. RC transformed while in midair and delivered a flying kick to crush on Gun-Ru and send it crashing into another before she drew her arm blades and rushed to cut down two more in front of her. Cliffjumper had also transformed into his robot mode and opened fire with his own energon blasters to destroy 4 Gun-Rus before the pilots even saw what was going on. While the Gurren quickly used her knife to cut down 2 Gun-Rus before quickly zooming in to grab the third with her Surger claw before Colin activated it to cause the smaller nightmare to boil and pop before it exploded. The Autobots. Here, Monica exclaimed in surprise as Cliffjumper, RC, and the Gurren came together. Yo! Cliffjumper gave a finger salute to the 2 surprised knights of the round. Man, never thought I'd be so happy to see them. Gino commented with a smile. Meanwhile, at the east side of the base, another ground bridge portal had opened up next to the trapped Galatian and Mordred as the vehicle modes of Bulkhead and Ironhide drove out with the Gekka pre-production right behind them. Bulkhead's vehicle mode easily rammed down 3 Gun-Rus before he transformed to deliver a literal crushing strike with his mace onto a 4th Gun-Ru. Ironhide had drove up and transformed behind Bulkhead to blast away the 6 attempting to ambush them with his own energon cannons. With only 3 left, Rai was able to slice them down relatively swiftly with his Gekka's katana. Well, this is unexpected. We were saved by the Autobots and the Black Knights, Anya said with a hint of surprise in her voice, despite the stoic expression she maintained. Nonette was rendered completely speechless, not just at being saved by the enemy, but because she recognized the Blue Nightmare, after seeing Ray's blue pilot suit back on Kaname Island, and knowing that the Black Knights only had one Blue Nightmare, it didn't take much to put 2 and 2 together. Kaiserin. What in the world just happened? Sao exclaimed as Sawazaki was left completely stunned. Sir, the teams surrounding the Knights of the Round have been completely decimated. One soldier reported. We have an incoming object on the radar. We have picture. The screen popped up to reveal a flying white Cybertronian ship making its way closer toward the base. Quote. What is that? Sawazaki exclaimed. Nice operation you got here, Sawazaki. A new voice said causally as he was easily able to hack into the base's communication systems. Although technically you might say it's under new management. A screen suddenly lit up to show footage of the smirking Wheeljack sitting at the controls of his personal ship, the Jackhammer. You're one of those Autobots. Sawazaki stated in surprise. Yep, and I'm also the one that's about to say bye-bye to your little anti-aircraft turrets. Wheeljack smirked as he pressed a red button on his console once the Jackhammer's targeting systems had a lock on all targets. A series of homing missiles were fired from the Jackhammer before they each scored a direct hit on each and every one of the turrets across the base, triggering several explosions that effectively crippled the enemy's outer defense in one stroke. The Autobots and Black Knights have their own ship. Lloyd exclaimed in surprise. It may be smaller than the Avalon, but it looks faster and far more powerful. Cecile stated, just as surprised as her boss. Who would have thought they had something like that all this time? Zero, we got aircraft and nightmares behind us. Obi reported as a dozen Gun-Rus and the same amount of aircraft tried to take them by surprise. Then let's take care of it. Lelouch smirked as the Gawain flew in the air at incredible speeds. The large Black Nightmare aimed its hands to shoot a series of slash harkens from each of its fingers before it quickly waved its arms, causing the weapons to act like whips as each of the aircraft were sliced and diced with little issue. The Gawain then aimed its shoulder-mounted cannons down below and fired a series of large red beams to obliterate all the Gun-Rus with one single blast. Dreadwing and Suzaku were nothing short of stunned at this display of power and skill, while Optimus and Bumblebee looked more so impressed than anything else. That thing was about as slow as an Energon refinery transport. Bumblebee commented. Now look at it, bet it could even give Megatron some trouble. Indeed, Bumblebee. Optimus acknowledged. Rakshata, Ratchet, and their team have done wonders to improve upon the Gawain. Cecile and Lloyd saw the Gawain's power as well. The Gawain wasn't nearly that fast as before, and the Hadron Cannon was supposed to be in development. Cecile stated. They not only made the beams converge but even improved the Gawain's maneuverability. Lloyd's eyes shook as they appeared green with envy. But I wanted to be the one to perfect that system. Meanwhile, Ratchet, Fix-It, Rakshata, Shirley, Toto, Tamaki, Katace, Kagaya, Diathard, and the Holy Swords, along with a few other Black Knights, watched the events of Fukuhara Base play out on the main screen of the Ark's bridge. Have I mentioned how much I love Cybertronian technology? Rakshata commented with a smile. There's no way Britannia could have made the Gawain like this on their own. Guess the Earl of Pudding is losing his edge. These readings are incredible. Fix-It commented. With the Gawain's power, not to mention Zero's strategic thinking, if both of them were put together in one being, it would even match Optimus. Both physically and entertainingly, repeatedly, strategically. While the modified Gawain will certainly prove useful, we cannot afford to get overconfident. Ratchet advised. It all depends on whether or not Zero and his chosen co-pilot can react in battle. Hello Nonette. Rai greeted as he established a private communications channel from the Gekka pre-production with the Galician so no one outside could hear them. Anya was about to approach, but Bulkhead and Ironhide stood in between her and the other two nightmares, just in case she got any funny ideas. Kazarin, her eyes shook with so many mixed emotions. It really is you. I told you before, my name is Rai. He said before he sighed. But you should know, I remember everything now. Nonette could not contain her surprised gasp. You were right, I really was a bastard prince. And I also remember you were always so kind to me, my sister, and my mother. I even looked up to you like an older sister. Nonette remembered all that as well, those were good memories, not to mention the fact he had his memories back brought some tears to her eyes, both in joy and sadness as he now remembered the tragic truth of his family, at least what she knew of it. As far as she was concerned, the concept of Geass was still unknown to her. But, just setting the record straight, I'm not going back to Britannia. Rai got to the point. The Autobots and Black Knights are like my family, and I won't leave them. Also, they know who I am too, but they don't reject me for it, so you don't have to worry about me, I promise I'm alright. I'm always going to worry about you, it's my duty as your knight, remember? Nonette said with a small smile. But, I understand. Just know, that no matter what happens, I am on your side. You can trust me. I know I can, and I thank you for it. Rai assured. Hey Gino, miss us. Cliffjumper greeted as he, RC, and the Gurren faced the Tristian and Florence directly. Cliff, thanks for the save, really owe you one. Gino said truthfully. What are you all doing here? Monica questioned, both in surprise and in an interrogation-like manner. Saving your sorry hides, what does it look like? RC gave a small glare. Colin remained silent as she didn't want to accidentally expose her identity to two of her fellow student council members. But she still smirked slightly at the irony of the current situation. We actually saved Britannia's top pilots. Never thought I'd see the day. Kururugi, is the Lancelot still operational? Lelouch asked from the Gawain as it, Optimus, and Bumblebee faced the Lancelot as well as Dreadwing. Zero, I thought so. Suzaku stated. Why did you save us? Dreadwing questioned. What purpose do you serve here? We came here because you were in trouble. Optimus answered. We have also come to disarm Sawazaki and repel the occupying Chinese Federation forces. This took Suzaku especially by surprise. Contrary to what you might think, Suzaku, we're not here to hurt anyone. Lelouch told him. The Black Knights and the Autobots exist to protect the weak, that's all. But why assist us? Dreadwing asked. Because it is the right thing to do. Optimus answered. The high eunuchs of the Chinese Federation are no different from the likes of Charles Z. Britannia and would put Japan through the same treatment it's currently receiving from Britannia. We won't let that happen. Bumblebee walked toward the Lancelot and handed it a familiar device, much to Suzaku's surprise. An energy filler. We're going to take out the enemy command center. Lelouch spoke. If you wish to help, you're more than welcome to. It's what you came here to do, isn't it? Neither Suzaku nor Dreadwing could have expected this. However, Dreadwing wasn't all that surprised, as a part of him knew that Optimus would oppose the likes of Sawazaki in a spark beat. Suzaku, however, couldn't help but chuckle. Just when I thought I'd got you guys figured out, you go ahead and surprise me again. Suzaku commented as the Lancelot sheathed its MVS sword and accepted the energy filler Bumblebee offered him. Maybe it's time to try and look at things through a different perspective. Lelouch commented with a small smile, glad his friend accepted their help. Ogi, who had remained silent during this conversation, shared a smile with his leader as well. This is not the first time we've allied against a common enemy. Dreadwing smiled slightly. It's starting to become something of a habit. Optimus shared a small smile as well before his faceplate went up. He, Bumblebee, the Gawain, Dreadwing, and the recharged Lancelot went on the attack. The three Cybertronians transformed into their respective vehicle modes and rolled alongside the two Nightmares. Though Dreadwing flew in his case, he stuck closer to the ground just above the group. At the same time, RC and Cliffjumper drove in their vehicle modes alongside the Gurren Mk2, the Tristian, and Florence on the west side of the base, having formed an alliance as well, with a similar situation on the eastern side of the base as Bulkhead and Ironhide's vehicle modes drove alongside the Gekka pre-production, the Mordred, and Galashan. All three groups moved in closer toward the base, along with the Jackhammer, as their combined efforts were more than enough to easily cleave through what was left of the enemy forces. I don't understand, Sawazaki exclaimed as he and Sao saw their forces falling like dominoes. Why would the Autobots and Black Knights work alongside Britannia? They're enemies. We could ask you the same thing. Sawazaki looked in even further surprise to see their communication monitors were hacked once more to see the glaring faces of both Toto and Katace, much to his shock. Toto, and Katace, you're alive. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Katace said. Why are you fighting me though? Sawazaki exclaimed. Shouldn't be working together as comrades. Don't you care about Japan? The Black Knights and the Autobots protect the freedom of all sentient beings. Toto replied. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Sawazaki shouted. I'm trying to free Japan from Britannia. You fled the country the second our cabinet fell apart. Katace stated. You sold yourself to the Chinese Federation and are now about to sell out the country to them too. You are a disgrace, Atsushi Sawazaki. Euphemia could not contain her joy as she saw all of this. Lelouch, you kept your promise. You, Optimus, Suzaku, and Dreadwing. Tears of joy were already falling down her face. What? The Autobots and Black Knights? Cornelia questioned as she and Guilford had already touched down with their respective Nightmares and led their forces onto the shore. Yes, they saved the Knights, Dreadwing, and Kururugi. Guilford informed. They're actually helping us. Cornelia voiced her confusion aloud. Why? So, they took the Chinese Federation forces by surprise and gained the allegiances of the Knights, Kururugi, and even this Dreadwing. Diethard observed. That was brilliant. It feels a little weird that we're fighting with Britannia's elite. Tamaki commented. Well, I know most of them from school. Shirley said. They're not bad people. In fact, they might even be able to help us fight the Decepticons. Having Knights of the Round on our side could increase our chances at victory quite a bit. Fix-It put in. True, but it's not just the battle, it's the fact that everyone is seeing it. Ratchet said, getting everyone's attention. Though media may try to change the outcome, we were able to use the ARC systems to broadcast all of this across the entire country. That took all the present Black Knights, even Diethard, by surprise. This is happening live, Chiba questioned. The whole country is seeing this. Yes, Ratchet confirmed. And this will not only send a message to the population of Japan, but show the Earth where we stand. Protecting the people, regardless of their nationality, is our first commitment. Which in turn, will give us more support. Diethard had a fanatic smile on his face as everyone else shared smiles of their own. It was true, all across Japan, virtually every television screen was showing the battle that was unfolding in Kyushu. Specifically, the forces of the Black Knights and the Autobots working alongside the Britannian Knights to repel the Chinese Federation. Everyone from the Japanese to Britannian civilian populace, even Schneisel and Diethard watched, with the latter in great surprise while the former had something of an impressed and knowing smirk on his face. Even Rivals, Millie, and Nina all saw it from their homes. It was even seen on the television at the Ashford clubhouse as Cece and Sayoko stood next to Nunnally in her wheelchair. Though she couldn't see it, she heard everything the TV was showing. She smiled, knowing how much good Lelouch, Suzaku, and all their friends, Cybertronian or human, were doing by working together like this. She smiled and held out both her hands, which Cece and Sayoko each took as they shared smiles with one another as well. What's wrong with going to another country, then waiting for the right moment to strike? Sawazaki questioned as he and Sao rode a vehicle toward the helipad to escape this lost battle. That's an effective strategy, isn't it? We can set up a new line of defense at Kagoshima. Sao offered. Right, I appreciate your help, Sawazaki said. However, right as their vehicle rode onto the helipad, they looked in complete and utter surprise to see there wasn't a helicopter transport waiting for them, but the jackhammer parked on top of what was left of it, with Wheeljack himself leaning against the side of his ship with a casual smirk. Going somewhere, Wheeljack teased. But that wasn't the end of it. Everyone else had arrived as well, having climbed the building or flown up. First the Gurren, RC, Tristian, Cliffjumper, and Florence, followed by the Gekka, Bulkhead, Galatian, Ironhide, and Mordred, and last but not least, Optimus Prime, the Gawain, Bumblebee, Dreadwing, and the Lancelot. That is far enough, Sawazaki. Optimus stated as they all completely surrounded him and Sao. Sawazaki couldn't believe it. Impossible. They took the largest fortress in all of Kyushu, with no effort at all. Meanwhile, Megatron and Soundwave had witnessed everything play out as well from the Nemesis and had heard everything that was spoken in between the two parties before joining forces, that even included Euphemia's confession to Suzaku, all thanks to Soundwave. Well, this was certainly unexpected. Megatron commented. And you got everything, right? He turned to Soundwave. Your brother and sister, Lelouch and Nunnally, they're alive. Soundwave replayed his recording of Suzaku's reveal to Euphemia. So Kururugi believed he found a way out. Megatron surmised. He saw his opportunity to die and also chose to use it as an attempt to save those dear to him. I must admit, that was actually rather clever. Soundwave then looked to Megatron, silently asking what they should do about this. Let them go on, let us pretend we never heard that. Let their hopes rise, it'll make it all the more satisfying as we shatter them. We have a special project of our own planned, Megatron said with an evil sneer. After Sawazaki was captured, Suzaku, Dreadwing, and the Knights of the Round allowed the Black Knights and Autobots to return to their base as a way of saying thanks for their help, but if they end up on opposite sides of the battle, they will fight them if they have to. The bots and BKs all seemed to accept that as they returned to the Ark and allowed the Britannian authorities to deal with Sawazaki and his collaborators. The next day, both Suzaku and Dreadwing stood in front of Euphemia in the royal garden of the Tokyo Settlement's royal palace. Suzaku bowed before the princess. Warrant Officer Kururugi, reporting for duty. Welcome back, Suzaku. Euphemia smiled sincerely. She then looked up to Cybertronian present. Dreadwing, thank you again for helping him. You are welcome. Dreadwing nodded with a smile. Though, in all honesty, you should be thanking Prime and Zero. If it weren't for them, I don't believe either of us would be here. I'll be sure to when I see them again, Euphemia said before looking to Suzaku with a serious expression. Suzaku, my brother and sister, are they? I'm sorry I never told you. Suzaku apologized. It's just, I didn't want to take any chances that someone would try to take advantage of them. Still, I thank you for helping to protect them, Euphemia said sincerely. And I promise I'll help them, but, how did Megatron of all people find out? Suzaku winced. It wasn't my intent, but he, somehow pulled the information from my mind, literally. Dreadwing's optics widened in shock. A cortical psychic patch. He used it on Suzaku. On a human. Euphemia saw the look on Dreadwing's face and used it as her chance to speak to him. Dreadwing, let me ask you something. Does the phrase, Dark Energon, sound familiar to you? Dark Energon? Suzaku questioned in confusion. I have heard of it, yes. Dreadwing confirmed. The so-called blood of Unicron. Megatron had somehow found a way to weaponize it, that's what I've learned. Did you know he used it to poison Cybertron's core? Euphemia asked. What? Suzaku exclaimed as even Dreadwing was caught off guard by that, indicating he wasn't aware of that. When we were trapped on that island, Optimus told me everything. Euphemia began. Everything that Megatron told us, even you Dreadwing, it was lie. Megatron destroyed Cybertron all by himself. He never tried to save it, he only sought power, nothing more. He's a monster. And, I somehow, have a terrible feeling, that he may try to bring that fate to Earth as well. Suzaku could not believe what he was hearing, and neither could Dreadwing. One look in Euphemia's eyes told her that she was being serious about this. Dreadwing knew Optimus was not a liar, so there was indeed some truth behind this, as much as he didn't want to believe it. That's why, I want to do what I can to ensure Earth has a bright future. Euphemia said. Not just protecting it from the Decepticons, but also stopping all this violence and bloodshed that Britannia has encouraged for so many years. I know I may only be a sub-viceroy, but I can't stand to sit on the sidelines anymore, so Suzaku, Dreadwing, will you two help me? Will you both help me to protect this world, even if we end up working with Optimus and Zero? Both of whom I trust with my life. You really trust them that much? Suzaku voiced in surprise. They're not at all what you think they are, Suzaku. Euphemia said with a sincere smile. They want the same thing I do, to end all this destruction and bring about peace for this world. Will you help me? Will you be my knight? She offered Suzaku the knight pin once more. There was still a great many things weighing his mind, but Suzaku could tell that Euphemia was genuine in her wish, and that alone was enough for him to put his faith in her. I will, Your Highness. He accepted the pin with a smile. Euphemia cried tears of joy before she leapt and wrapped both her arms around Suzaku. Though surprised at first, he smiled as he returned the embrace. After a minute or two, they both parted as Dreadwing kneeled down toward them. And I promise, Princess Euphemia, you will have my support as well. Dreadwing vowed. I pledge myself to you in your cause of peace, to finally bring this conflict to an end. I will support and protect you, this I vow with all my spark. Yuffie's smile couldn't get any brighter as she knew she had both their support and could trust them with everything she held dear. Thank you, Dreadwing. Thank you both from the bottom of my heart. And this is the end of part 15 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.